My name is Elena and I am 26 years old. I had just watched my parents walk past me at my own graduation ceremony, pretending they didn't see me, laughing with my brother's fiancé as if I were invisible. 2 weeks later they texted me, "Send $20,000 immediately," and when I refused, police knocked on my door at midnight. My heart broke, but something inside me sharpened. They thought they could shame me, erase me, use me. They had no idea what I had been preparing in silence, and what I had discovered about our family's money. Before I continue, tell me your country and the time right now. My name echoed from the stage, Elena Rivera, Bachelor of Law, Honors. For a split second, I believed someone might clap. Maybe my mother would rise, proud for once. But when I turned, I saw her scrolling through her phone, smiling at my brother instead. My father adjusted his tie, pretending not to notice me. They had come to my graduation, yes, but not for me. They were there to boast about my brother's engagement, showing photos of his fiancée's diamond ring to anyone who'd listen. I stood under the auditorium lights, diploma trembling in my hands, the heat of humiliation spreading across my chest. My classmates' families cheered, cried, waved flowers. Mine? They walked out before my name finished echoing. It wasn't new. Growing up, I was the child who washed dishes while my brother slept. The one told to understand when gifts skipped my birthday but arrived on his in double. My father always said, "He's the future of this family." My mother called me difficult when I asked why love had to be earned. That night, after the ceremony, I caught a glimpse of them in the courtyard, posing with my brother in front of the university banner. My mother's laughter cut through the cold air like glass. I stood alone, holding my cap, pretending to check my phone so no one would see the tears forming. Then it happened. Across the courtyard, near the fountain, a man in a dark coat was watching me. He wasn't a parent, not a professor. Just standing still, hands clasped behind his back, eyes fixed on me. When I met his gaze, he gave the smallest nod, as if confirming something. I looked away, pretending not to notice. When I turned back, my parents were gone. My brother too. Only the man remained. I started walking toward the exit, but he stepped forward, placing something on the bench near me, a thick envelope sealed in black wax. No words, no explanation. Then he disappeared into the night crowd. I hesitated, heart pounding. The envelope was heavy. My name was written across it in bold letters, Elena Rivera. I could still hear my father's voice in my head. "You'll never make it without us." My fingers brushed the seal. The wax cracked slightly under pressure. A gust of wind carried a scent of rain and roses. For a moment, I wanted to rip it open right there, but something made me stop. Because from the corner of my eye, I saw my father again. Standing near the parking lot, watching me. His face had gone pale. He grabbed my mother's arm, whispered something sharp, and they hurried away toward the car. The black envelope felt heavier now, as if it held a weight older than all of us. Something inside me shifted, fear tangled with curiosity. I tucked it into my bag. The rain began to fall softly, each drop echoing like a heartbeat on the pavement. I thought I was walking away from a humiliation. I didn't realize I was stepping straight into war. As I turned the corner, headlights flashed. The man from the fountain was there again, waiting, holding out his hand. "Not here," he said quietly. "Follow me if you want to know the truth." My name was called from the stage, Elena Rivera, Bachelor of Law, Honors. The words should have been a victory, the kind that makes your heart swell and your knees weak. But when the applause broke out across the hall, it wasn't for me. My classmates cheered for their friends, parents whistled, cameras flashed. And in the corner of the auditorium, my family, my own blood, didn't even look up. My mother was on her phone, scrolling through photos of my brother's engagement party. My father was speaking to the dean about my brother's business plans, not about me. They hadn't congratulated me, hadn't brought flowers, hadn't even said they were proud. They came to my graduation, yes, but not for me. They came because they wanted to brag about my brother's fiancée, a woman I barely knew, who once called me the weird sister. As I walked across the stage, my palms were damp, my throat dry. I smiled because the photographer said, "Look happy." I smiled because the world expected me to. But inside, I was screaming. When I turned to face the audience, I caught my mother's eyes for just a second. I thought, maybe, she'd finally see me. But she looked away, whispering something to my father, who laughed. I swallowed the burn in my throat and stepped down the stage steps, clutching my diploma like a lifeline. They left before the ceremony even ended. I watched them from the glass doors, their silhouettes vanishing into the parking lot while other families hugged, laughed, cried. My friend's mother handed her a bouquet, saying, "You did it, honey." My own mother? She didn't even look back. It was always like this. When I was 10, I drew a portrait of our family for art class. I gave it to my mother, hoping she'd hang it on the fridge. She said, "Don't waste paper." When my brother failed a test, she blamed me, said I distracted him. When he crashed the car at 16, my father told everyone I had taken it without permission. I was grounded for months while my brother went to parties. I was the helper, the listener, the shadow. And somehow, I believed if I just achieved enough, they'd love me. That's why I chose law, their dream, not mine. They said it was respectable. They said, "You'll make the family proud." But as I stood there with my degree, all I felt was small. Outside, the courtyard lights flickered. Rain had started, soft and cold. I stood under the archway, watching families gather for photos. Laughter drifted in the air, mixed with the sound of umbrellas snapping open. Then I saw him. A man in a long dark coat, standing near the fountain. Still. Silent. Watching me. He didn't look like a parent. His posture was too deliberate, his eyes too focused. For a moment, I thought he might be security. But then he raised his hand, almost like a salute, and I froze. There was something unsettling about how calm he looked. I wanted to ignore him, walk away, pretend he wasn't there. But something, curiosity or fate, made me glance back once more. That's when I saw the envelope. He placed it on the stone bench beside the fountain, thick, cream paper sealed with black wax. The rain didn't seem to touch it. Across the front, written in elegant handwriting, was my name, Elena Rivera. I looked up to ask who he was, but he was gone. The air around me shifted. I could feel my heart thudding in my throat. My fingers trembled as I picked up the envelope, heavy, expensive paper, the kind lawyers use. My reflection shimmered in the wet marble of the fountain, pale and uncertain. And then, from the corner of my eye, I saw my parents again. They were standing near the exit, whispering sharply. My father's face had drained of color. He saw the envelope in my hands and grabbed my mother's arm. They turned, almost running, pulling my brother behind them. That's when I knew something was wrong. The rain fell harder. I tucked the envelope into my bag, feeling the edges dig into my ribs. My breath came shallow, quick. I walked away from the university, the sound of thunder echoing over the parking lot. Every step felt heavier than the last. I didn't know what was inside the envelope. But I knew one thing, my parents didn't want me to have it. And that made me want to open it even more. At the corner of the street, headlights flashed. A black sedan slowed beside me. My pulse spiked. The window rolled down, and there he was again, the man from the fountain. Rain dripped from his coat collar, his expression unreadable. He looked at me with eyes that felt like they'd seen too much. "Not here," he said softly. "It's not safe." "Who are you?" I asked, my voice trembling. He smiled faintly, like someone who knew a secret. "Someone your grandfather trusted." And then he added, almost a whisper. "If you want to know why they pretend you don't exist, follow me." The car door opened. Rain soaked through my shoes. My parents' taillights disappeared down the road. I took one last breath, and stepped toward the car. As the door closed behind me, the man handed me a business card. I glanced down, the logo read Martinez and Lowe, estate law firm. And beneath it, one line in gold letters. Executor of the Rivera Trust. The car smelled faintly of leather and rain. My hands were shaking, gripping my bag against my chest as we drove through the empty streets. The stranger hadn't said much since I got in, just his name, Mr. Calderon, and that he worked for my grandfather's estate. My grandfather. The word alone made something tighten in my chest. He'd died 5 years ago, a quiet death that my parents treated like an inconvenience. They didn't even let me attend his funeral. Said it was family only. I was family, but apparently not enough. He was the only person who ever saw me, really saw me, the one who used to leave folded notes in my backpack, "You're brighter than they'll ever admit." Now this stranger was saying he'd worked for him. We pulled into a small cafe on the edge of town, the kind that looked closed but wasn't. The windows glowed dimly, condensation fogging the glass. Mr. Calderon parked without a word and stepped out first, holding the door open for me like I was someone important. I wasn't used to that. Inside, the cafe was empty except for an old man behind the counter, polishing cups. Mr. Calderon led me to a corner booth. He sat opposite me, set a folder on the table, and placed the envelope I'd received beside it. The wax seal had softened in the rain, edges smudged but still intact. "I've been looking for you, Elena," he said quietly. His voice was deep, deliberate. "Your grandfather left instructions that you were to receive this when you finished your degree." I blinked. "What? That can't be right. He's been gone for years." He nodded. "He planned ahead. He trusted your persistence." Something inside me twisted, that word, persistence. My parents called it stubbornness. My teachers called it difficult. But my grandfather once said, "One day, it will save you." "What is it?" I asked, glancing at the envelope. He looked at me for a long moment before answering. "Proof," he said. "Of what's yours. And of what they took." I froze. "Who?" He didn't answer. Instead, he slid the envelope across the table. My name glimmered faintly under the low light. I reached for it, my fingers trembling. "Before you open it," he said, "you need to understand, your parents won't let this go quietly. They've already hidden what belonged to you once. They'll do worse if they have to." "My parents?" I laughed softly, though it came out like a shiver. "They don't even care enough to talk to me." He tilted his head. "Oh, they care. Just not in the way you think." The cafe lights flickered. Outside, the rain beat harder against the windows. I broke the seal. Inside were documents, old, yellowed papers, some recent bank records, a notarized letter. My breath caught when I saw the header, Rivera Holdings Trust. My grandfather's signature ran across the bottom of the page. Beneath it, a clause marked in blue ink. "Upon the completion of her legal studies, all shares, accounts, and property under Rivera Holdings shall transfer to my granddaughter, Elena Rivera, as primary heir." The room spun slightly. I stared at the words until they blurred. This can't be real. My parents told me everything went to them. Mr. Calderon nodded. They changed documents after his passing. But the original trust remained sealed. Hidden in my custody. Until now. My pulse roared in my ears. Every memory came flooding back, my mother forbidding me to visit my grandfather before he died, my father selling the old house for debts, my brother bragging about new investments. They had stolen from me. "Why now?" I whispered. "Because you finally earned the one thing he believed would protect you, your law degree." His voice softened. "He wanted you to know how to fight back." I pressed my palms against the papers, afraid they might vanish. My throat tightened with a rush of anger, grief, disbelief, all tangled into something electric. Then Mr. Calderon leaned forward. "They'll come for you now. The moment they realize what's in your hands, they'll act. Do not go home tonight." Outside, thunder cracked. I nodded numbly, still trying to breathe. Where do I go? He slid a card toward me, his office address, embossed in gold. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. We'll start there. And Elena, don't answer their calls. I didn't realize how prophetic that would sound until later. Because that night, as I stepped out into the storm clutching the folder to my chest, my phone buzzed. Mom. Then Dad. Then my brother. Over and over. I didn't pick up. But when the cafe lights dimmed behind me, I glanced back, and saw them standing across the street. My parents. Watching. My mother's umbrella tilted slightly, her face pale, eyes furious. My father's lips moved, saying something I couldn't hear. The wind howled. I turned away and walked faster, heart hammering. When I reached my apartment door, soaked to the bone, I thought I was safe. But as I slid the key into the lock, headlights flashed again. A police car. 2 officers stepped out. One held a paper, rain smearing the ink. Are you Elena Rivera? Yes. This is a civil notice, the officer said. Filed by your parents. You're accused of financial misconduct. The world tilted. My hands went numb. The folder slipped from my grasp, spilling across the wet pavement. Through the rain, I saw the accusation in black letters, my parents' signatures at the bottom, and one line that stole my breath. Unauthorized possession of estate documents. The police left after confirming my identity and handing me the paper. They didn't arrest me, not yet, but the message was clear. I was being watched. The rain soaked through my hair, dripping down my back as I knelt on the pavement, gathering the wet pages one by one. The ink bled, my hands trembling, but I could still make out my grandfather's signature. That single mark of truth against all their lies. By the time I got inside my apartment, my clothes clung to me like a second skin. The lights flickered, old wiring again. My breath came shallow and quick as I spread the documents across the table. I used a towel to dry the edges, terrified they'd tear. And that's when I noticed something I hadn't seen before. At the bottom of one of the pages, faintly embossed into the paper, was a crest, a lion carved around the letter R. Rivera. The family seal. My grandfather used it for every official document he ever signed. My parents didn't know it was there. They couldn't have. The copy they forged must have missed this detail. Proof. Real, legal proof. I sank into the chair, my mind racing. Everything my parents had built, the house, the investments, my brother's new car dealership, it had all come from what was supposed to be mine. The words from Mr. Calderon echoed in my mind, they'll do worse if they have to. I didn't sleep that night. I kept rereading every line until the words etched themselves into my brain. At around 3 a.m., I noticed something tucked inside the folder, a small envelope, cream-colored, sealed with red wax this time. My name written again, but in handwriting I knew instantly. My grandfather's. My hand shook as I broke the seal. The paper inside was thin, aged, but his scent still clung to it, cedar and tobacco. His handwriting looped across the page, steady and deliberate. My dearest Elena. If you are reading this, I am no longer here to protect you. But know this, the truth was always yours. I saw what they were doing long before you did. I tried to stop it, but they turned you into the enemy because you reminded them of me. You carry the same stubborn fire, the kind they fear, the kind they cannot control. I have hidden the documents they stole, and a man named Calderon will find you when the time is right. Do not trust your parents. Do not trust your brother. They will disguise greed as love. But you must use your mind, not your heart. That is how you will win. Remember, Rivera blood may betray, but it also fights back. I pressed the paper to my chest, shaking. Tears came, hot and silent. It was like hearing his voice again, whispering across the years. I sat there until dawn broke, the city outside tinted gray and gold. My phone buzzed again, Mom. Then a message. Call us. Now. Another. We can fix this, Elena. Don't make it worse. I didn't answer. I walked to the window and stared out at the rain-soaked street below. For the first time, I didn't feel small. I felt awake. At 9 a.m. sharp, I went to Mr. Calderon's office, a narrow building downtown, the kind you'd miss unless you knew where to look. Inside, the air smelled of paper and old wood. Files lined the walls. A receptionist led me to his office, where he stood waiting beside a large mahogany desk covered in more documents. He looked up. You kept the papers safe? I nodded, handing them to him. They filed a claim against me last night. His jaw tightened. That was faster than I expected. He scanned the documents quickly, his eyes narrowing at the accusation sheet. This isn't real, he muttered. They're trying to preempt your legal claim, to make you look like the thief before you can prove their fraud. So what do I do? He leaned back, fingers steepled. You do nothing yet. Let them move first. The more they panic, the more mistakes they make. What matters is that you have the originals, and the family seal. That's what will destroy their version. I exhaled shakily, a mix of fear and grim relief flooding me. Then he added, and there's something else. He opened a drawer and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside, wrapped in folded parchment, was a key. Old, iron, ornate. This was part of your grandfather's instruction. It opens a safe deposit box in his name. He wanted you to have it once you proved you were ready. What's inside? He smiled faintly. He didn't tell me. Only that it's the last piece of what he called the Rivera truth. I held the key, its cold metal pressing into my palm. My life until now had been spent trying to earn my family's approval, but this was something else entirely. This was mine. The office phone rang. Mr. Calderon picked it up, listened for a few seconds, and his expression darkened. He hung up slowly. They've filed another motion, he said. This time, they're claiming you're mentally unstable. The words landed like a punch. My knees went weak. They're trying to destroy your credibility before court begins, he continued. But it's too late for them. They don't realize I've already filed for injunction. Their time is running out. I nodded, silent. My hands gripped the key tighter. Go home, he said. Rest. Tomorrow we start building your case. But as I walked out of the office, something inside me shifted again. Rest wasn't an option. Because I knew they'd never stop until I was ruined. And for the first time in my life, I had something they couldn't steal. That night, as I turned the key in my apartment door, I heard a sound inside, drawers opening, paper tearing, someone breathing. I wasn't alone. The sound was unmistakable, someone was inside my apartment. I froze in the hallway, my hand still on the doorknob. My heart slammed against my ribs so hard I thought it would echo through the walls. For a moment, I convinced myself it was the neighbor, maybe the super checking pipes again. But then I heard it, the rustle of papers, drawers slamming, a muttered curse. My body moved before my brain caught up. I stepped back, phone in hand, fingers trembling as I dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? There's someone in my apartment. I live at. The line cut as the door flung open from the inside. A man stepped out, tall, sharp-featured, soaked in the orange glow of the hallway light. My father. Elena, he said, his tone perfectly calm, like this was a casual visit. You weren't answering your phone. I could barely breathe. You broke into my apartment? He held up his hand. We needed to talk. You've done something very serious. Behind him, I saw my mother sitting on my couch, her hair still perfect, her purse open beside her. My papers, my grandfather's trust documents, were scattered across the floor. My voice rose, shaking. You went through my things? My mother stood, clutching one of the pages. Where did you get these? They were mine, I snapped. He left them to me. She slapped the paper down on the coffee table, her lips pressed into a tight line. That old man poisoned you. He wanted to destroy this family even in death. I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. By giving me what was legally mine? My father stepped forward, lowering his voice. You don't understand how this looks, Elena. Those documents are forgeries. You could go to prison for this. I felt the room tilt, nausea rising. Forged? They're signed, sealed. We already filed a complaint, my mother cut in. For your own protection. You're confused, and people will take advantage of you if we don't intervene. That's when I saw the police lights flash through the window. Blue and red reflections shimmered across my wall. I stumbled back. You called the police? My father sighed, like I was the one being unreasonable. It's better this way. They'll talk to you, sort this out before it gets worse. I stared at him, realizing they hadn't come here to talk. They'd come to erase evidence. A knock rattled the door. 2 officers stepped in, their faces unreadable. One held a clipboard. We received a report of a domestic disturbance and suspected document fraud. My father gestured toward me. That's her. My daughter. She's been unstable lately, making claims about inheritances and secret wills. Unstable. The word cracked something inside me. I took a shaky step forward, clutching the papers still in my hand. These are real. They're signed by my grandfather. I have a lawyer. Ma'am, the officer interrupted gently, please calm down. Can we see the papers? I hesitated. My mother's eyes were gleaming, like she'd already won. They'll take them, she said softly. And you'll have nothing left. I wanted to scream, to tear through the lie, but my throat closed. Mr. Calderon's words echoed, don't trust them. Don't hand over anything until I'm there. So I clutched the papers tighter and said, not without my lawyer present. The officer looked at my parents, then back at me. We can sort this out tomorrow. Tonight, maybe it's best you stay somewhere else. My mother stepped forward, putting on her best imitation of concern. Elena, sweetie, why don't you come home? We'll take care of this as a family. Family. The word burned. I shook my head, backing away toward the bedroom where my bag lay half-packed. I'm not going anywhere with you. My father's jaw tightened. Then we'll handle it ourselves. He turned to the officers. You see what we're dealing with? The younger one nodded uncertainly. Sir, we'll make a report. As they left, my parents lingered in the doorway. My mother looked me over one last time, her voice almost tender. You could have had everything if you'd just listened. Then she closed the door behind her. The silence after they left was suffocating. I slid to the floor, the papers pressed against my chest, shaking so violently I could barely breathe. My entire life, I'd believed their cruelty was just neglect, but this was war. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Unknown, you need to leave your apartment. They won't stop. The message was followed by a second. Unknown, Mr. Calderon sent me. Trust no one until morning. I stared at the text, pulse pounding. I grabbed my bag, stuffed the folder inside, and bolted down the stairwell. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the city glistening like glass. Somewhere behind me, a car door shut, deliberate, slow. I turned just in time to see my brother standing by my parents' car, watching me. He smiled. Not kindly. Not at all. He lifted his phone, snapped a photo of me, and said something I could barely hear over the wind. Dad was right. You're dangerous now. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the blue police lights flashing through my window, saw my father's calm, rehearsed face as he told the officers I was unstable, my mother's pitying smile, my brother's shadow in the rain. I spent the night in a cheap roadside motel, the kind that smelled like bleach and broken air conditioning. The papers were spread out across the bed, my grandfather's handwriting glowing faintly under the lamp. My body was there, but my mind was back in that apartment, with them. At 4 a.m., my phone buzzed again. "Mom, we didn't want to do that, but you forced our hand. Call us now." "Dad, you're making things worse for yourself. Don't involve outsiders." "Brother, you should delete those fake documents before it's too late." My hands trembled. I didn't reply. But then another message came, this one from an unknown number. "Elena, this is Mr. Calderon. Don't go home. They've filed an emergency motion to seize your belongings. Meet me at my office at 8. Bring everything." I exhaled, trying to steady myself. The clock ticked louder than usual, the motel's walls too thin to hold my thoughts in. When the sun rose, I packed the papers carefully into a waterproof folder and walked to the bus stop. Every car that slowed made my chest tighten. Every reflection looked suspicious. Paranoia, they'd call it. But they'd already proven I wasn't safe. At Mr. Calderon's office, the receptionist looked startled when she saw me. "He's in court this morning," she said. "He left instructions if you came early, wait here." I sat, my foot tapping, heart racing. The waiting room smelled of old books and rain. Then my phone buzzed again, this time with a call from my boss. "Elena," he said quietly, "your parents contacted the firm." My breath stopped. "What?" "They told the partners you were mentally unwell, that you forged inheritance papers, and that the police had visited your apartment. HR says you're suspended until the investigation's done." I couldn't speak. My throat locked up, tears burning behind my eyes. You believe them?" He hesitated. "It's not about belief. It's protocol." The call ended. The silence after was unbearable. They weren't just destroying my name in court, they were erasing my career, my identity. Everything I'd worked for. I stood, pacing. I wanted to scream, to break something, but all I could do was whisper, "Why can't they just let me live?" At that exact moment, another vibration, a text, from my brother this time. "You always wanted to be the victim. Congratulations. Now you are." And then, another. "Mom says she'll withdraw the complaint if you give back what's hers." What's hers? The words pulsed in my mind like a heartbeat. They'd taken everything for years, and now they still called it theirs. Something inside me snapped. Not loud, no shouting, no tears, just a quiet, deliberate break. I picked up the phone and called Mr. Calderon's office line. He answered after 2 rings. "Elena?" "They've turned everyone against me," I said, my voice cracking. "My job, the police, everything." "I know," he interrupted gently. "They're accelerating because they're scared." "That's good. It means they're losing control." "Good?" I laughed bitterly. "They're destroying my life." He paused. "They can only destroy what you still give them power over. You're not alone in this. Listen carefully, I found something in your grandfather's estate file that changes everything. You're not just the heir. You're the executor." The word hit me like thunder. Executor? But That means, he said, voice firm, you have legal authority to request all financial disclosures tied to the trust. You can demand the bank release records. And if your parents altered documents, you can charge them with fraud. I went silent, the air thick with disbelief. He continued, "Meet me tomorrow. We'll file the injunction before noon. Tonight, go somewhere safe. Don't answer their calls, no matter what they say." The line clicked off. I sat in the quiet lobby, phone still in my hand, staring at the dark screen. For a long time I couldn't move. Then a new message appeared. "Dad, we know where you are. Stop this before it's too late." I dropped the phone like it burned. My pulse hammered in my ears. I looked out the office window. Across the street, a black car was parked, engine running, headlights dim. My reflection stared back at me, pale and trembling. They were watching. By nightfall, I was hiding in a friend's apartment across town. I didn't tell her anything, just that I needed a place to stay. She didn't ask questions. I lay on her couch staring at the ceiling, replaying the day's events over and over. The humiliation, the panic, the disbelief, they all collapsed into one feeling: exhaustion. When my phone buzzed again at midnight, I almost ignored it. But this time, the message was different. "This is Attorney Delaney from Martinez and Lowe. Mr. Calderon has been detained for questioning. We need to speak with you immediately." My stomach dropped. Detained. The one person I could trust, gone. As I read the message again, another text appeared beneath it. "If you want to survive this, meet me at the courthouse at 8 a.m. Come alone." By the time dawn bled through the curtains, I hadn't slept a single minute. The message from Attorney Delaney pulsed in my mind like a siren. "Mr. Calderon has been detained." Those words kept circling back, slicing through every fragile thought I tried to hold together. I sat up on my friend's couch, my throat raw, my heart pounding in uneven bursts. My hands still smelled faintly of paper and ink, remnants of the documents I refused to let out of my sight. I'd wrapped them in plastic, sealed them inside my backpack, and kept the bag under my arm all night, like a child clutching a lifeline. Outside, the morning felt unnervingly still. No rain, no wind, just a gray, heavy sky pressing down on the city. At exactly 7:30 a.m., I stood in front of the courthouse. The building loomed over me, tall and indifferent, its marble steps slick with dew. Lawyers in pressed suits passed by, eyes blank, clutching briefcases full of other people's disasters. For a moment, I almost turned around. I wasn't ready. I wasn't anyone here. Just the daughter of people who'd decided I was an inconvenience. But then I remembered my grandfather's letter: "Rivera blood may betray, but it also fights back." I took a deep breath and pushed open the heavy doors. The lobby smelled like old wood polish and tension. People whispered in corners, security guards checked IDs, and the sound of echoing footsteps filled the high-ceilinged hall. A woman in a navy suit stood near the elevators, holding a file with my name on it. She looked to be in her 40s, composed, calm, but with the sharp gaze of someone used to watching chaos unfold. "Elena Rivera?" she asked, her tone precise. "Yes. I'm Attorney Delaney. Mr. Calderon's associate. He asked me to find you." "Why was he detained?" My voice cracked slightly. She glanced around, then lowered her voice. "Your parents filed an obstruction complaint. They're accusing him of tampering with estate documents and coercing you. It's nonsense, but it's buying them time." I swallowed hard. "So he's okay?" "For now. But they're tightening their grip." She gestured for me to follow her toward a side hallway, away from the crowd. Her heels clicked softly against the tile. "Listen carefully," she said. "They're planning to claim you forged those documents with Calderon's help. That's their whole defense." I froze. "That's insane." "I know," she said, eyes narrowing. "But they have influence, connections. They've already filed requests to seize your bank account under the guise of a protective injunction. If they succeed, you won't even be able to pay for your legal defense." My knees went weak. "They can't do that." "They can try. And they are." Delaney led me into a small consultation room. The fluorescent lights hummed faintly. She laid the file on the table. "Now, we fight back. Calderon told me about the key. The safe deposit box." I nodded, reaching into my bag and pulling it out. "He said it held the last piece." "Then that's where we go next," she said. "Because whatever's in there might be the proof that destroys them." Her certainty gave me a flicker of strength. We left the courthouse through a back exit and walked quickly toward the bank 2 blocks away, the same bank my parents used for all their transactions. The thought made my stomach twist. Inside, the banker's smile faltered when he saw my last name. "Rivera," he repeated carefully. "Yes," Delaney said smoothly, flashing her credentials. "Executor access. We're here for safe deposit box 314. He hesitated, glanced at his screen, then nodded reluctantly. Of course. Right this way. We followed him into the secure room, steel doors, concrete walls, cameras in every corner. He unlocked the compartment and stepped back. Delaney gestured for me to do it. My hand shook as I slid the key into the lock and turned it. The click echoed like a gunshot in the small space. Inside was a single black folder. No jewelry, no cash, just paper. I lifted it out slowly, the air inside cold and sterile. On the cover, embossed in gold, were the words, Rivera Family Holdings, Confidential. I opened it. Dozens of pages filled with signatures, contracts, wire transfers, my parents' names all over them. Offshore accounts. Fraudulent property sales. Hidden investments. And at the very end, a handwritten note from my grandfather. To be opened by my granddaughter Elena Rivera only. If she is reading this, she is ready to uncover the theft buried in her own bloodline. Delaney leaned over my shoulder, her breath catching. This is a full audit trail. Enough to bury them in court. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt sick. Every page I turned was another betrayal. Another reminder that my parents hadn't just ignored me, they'd stolen my future. Delaney placed a hand on my shoulder. We'll copy everything, file for discovery, and freeze their assets before they can move them again. I nodded slowly, the weight of the truth pressing down. My parents had tried to make me look insane, but every lie was written here in black and white. We stepped back into the main lobby. Delaney took the folder and said, "Go home. Get some rest. I'll handle the filings." But as I left the bank, a shadow detached from the wall across the street. My brother. He walked toward me, smiling that same cruel smile. "So this is where you've been hiding." I clutched my bag tighter. "Leave me alone." He shrugged, his tone mocking. "Mom says you've always been dramatic. But now you're just dangerous. You think a few old papers make you powerful?" I turned to walk away. His voice followed me. "Dad's going to fix this, Elena. You'll see. You don't win against us." Before I could reply, my phone buzzed again, this time from an unknown number. "Your lawyer won't make it to court tomorrow. Be ready." I didn't know what fear felt like until that morning, the kind that doesn't make you scream, but makes you silent. The kind that wraps around your ribs and whispers, "You're not safe anywhere." I spent the night sitting on my couch, shoes still on, the folder of documents locked in my suitcase under the table. Every noise outside made me flinch. I didn't sleep, I just waited for daylight. At 7:45 a.m., I left for the courthouse. The city looked strangely calm, like the world didn't know that my life was about to be dragged into a legal war against my own parents. I kept telling myself to breathe. "You're a lawyer," I whispered. "You know how this works. But it's different when you're the one on trial." When I reached the courthouse steps, cameras flashed, reporters already gathered, whispering my name like it was scandal. Elena Rivera, the disowned daughter. Family fraud allegations. I pushed through the crowd, my chest tight. Inside, Attorney Delaney was waiting for me. Her expression was unreadable, calm on the surface, sharp underneath. She handed me a coffee I didn't taste. "They're going to play dirty," she said. "Stay quiet. Let me speak until I signal you." I nodded, clutching the folder against my chest like armor. The courtroom smelled of varnish and old paper, the air heavy with tension. My parents sat at the opposing table, perfectly composed. My father wore his best suit, the one he used for business awards. My mother was in pearls, her expression saintly, eyes wet as if she were the victim. My brother sat behind them, arms folded, smirking. The judge entered. Case number 14-927, Rivera vs. Rivera. The irony of that almost made me laugh. Delaney stood, her voice steady. "Your Honor, my client, Elena Rivera, is here in defense against a false claim of document fraud. We have original copies of the Rivera Holdings Trust, as well as notarized confirmation of authenticity from the estate's executor. My father's lawyer, a tall man with 2 white teeth, rose. Your Honor, the defendants, Mr. and Mrs. Rivera, contend that Miss Rivera fabricated said documents with the aid of the late executor, Mr. Calderon, who is currently under investigation for financial tampering. The judge raised an eyebrow. Is that so? Delaney didn't flinch. Yes, Your Honor, he's being questioned, not charged. And for context, that questioning was initiated by the Riveras themselves, after discovering the trust wasn't in their favor. The judge nodded, unimpressed. Proceed. Delaney turned to me. Show the documents. I stood, knees trembling, and walked to the witness stand. My hands were ice cold as I placed the folder on the table. Every rustle of paper felt amplified in the silence. I opened it to the front page, my grandfather's name in elegant script. Delaney spoke clearly. Miss Rivera, can you identify these? Yes, I said softly, forcing my voice not to shake. These are the original estate documents of the Rivera Holdings Trust, signed by my grandfather, witnessed and notarized in 2018. He left the entire trust in my name, effective upon the completion of my legal degree. The courtroom murmured. I saw my mother's jaw tighten, her knuckles white. The opposing lawyer rose. Objection. This is a fabricated story. There's no proof these signatures weren't forged. Delaney smirked faintly. Actually, there is. She lifted a second document. This is a verification certificate issued by the notary who handled the original will, notarized under the firm's seal. Furthermore, we have forensic handwriting analysis confirming authenticity. The judge looked up. You have the original signature comparison? Yes, Your Honor. She handed the pages to the bailiff, who passed them up. The judge studied them for a long moment, then looked at my parents. Mr. and Mrs. Rivera, care to explain why your signatures appear on a subsequent sale agreement filed 2 months after this trust was enacted? My father cleared his throat. We were executing our own property rights. Property you no longer owned, Delaney said smoothly. According to this trust, all assets were already transferred to my client upon the decedent's death. My mother's composure cracked. He didn't mean for her to have it. She's unstable, he said. Enough, the judge interrupted sharply. Speculation is not testimony. I felt something shift then, not victory, not yet, but the faint tremor of power returning. For years, I'd been the quiet one, the invisible one. But now, for the first time, they were the ones struggling to defend their lies. Delaney stepped closer to me, whispering, "We're not done yet. The real blow comes next." She turned to the judge. Your Honor, the trust also references a supplementary will sealed at Martinez and Lowe, one the plaintiffs deliberately concealed. The judge frowned. Is that verified? Delaney nodded. Yes. And we request to enter it into evidence today. A bailiff carried forward a sealed envelope, black wax, gold insignia. My parents went pale. My mother clutched my father's arm. This document, Delaney said, was recovered from the estate's archives last week, with court permission. It contains a personal letter from the late Mr. Rivera, clarifying his intent. The judge broke the seal and began to read silently. The courtroom went dead quiet. My pulse thundered. After a long pause, he looked up. The will explicitly names Elena Rivera as the sole heir to the Rivera Holdings estate. Furthermore, it expresses concern over potential mismanagement by the plaintiffs. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. My mother's voice broke. He hated me for marrying into money. He didn't know what he was doing. But my father just stared straight ahead, jaw clenched, sweat forming at his temple. Delaney looked at me, eyes fierce. We've got them. Just then, the judge's clerk entered with a note, urgent. The judge read it, then looked up, his tone grave. Counsel, we have a complication. The executor, Mr. Calderon, has been found unconscious in his office. The words hit me like a physical blow. Mr. Calderon has been found unconscious in his office. The judge's voice seemed to echo from far away, distorted by the rush of blood in my ears. I gripped the table to keep from collapsing. Every whisper in the courtroom became a roar, my parents' lawyer leaning toward them, my mother's hand flying to her chest, my brother's smirk vanishing into shock. Delaney's hand touched my arm lightly. "Stay calm," she whispered. But her voice trembled. The judge cleared his throat. "Paramedics are on site. We'll adjourn until we receive confirmation of his condition. Both parties are ordered to remain available for questioning if this incident relates to the case." The gavel struck once. The sound cracked through me. As everyone began to file out, I felt my knees give. Delaney guided me toward the hallway, her voice steady but urgent. "We'll go to the hospital. I'll get us clearance." Outside the courtroom, reporters swarmed like flies to blood. Microphones thrust forward, cameras flashing. "Elena, is it true your family's lawyer collapsed? Do you think your parents had anything to do with it? Is the inheritance still in dispute?" Delaney pushed them back, shielding me with her arm as we hurried down the marble steps. My mind was spinning. Calderon. The will. The documents. It couldn't be coincidence, not now, not right when the truth was being read aloud. In the car, Delaney's phone buzzed. She answered, her tone sharp. "Yes, this is she." "What? When?" "I see. Thank you." She hung up, staring ahead for a long moment before speaking. "He's alive," she said finally. "But barely. They said there were signs of forced entry." My breath caught. "Someone attacked him?" She nodded grimly. "And they took files. The backup copies." I stared out the window as the city blurred by, my reflection pale and unfamiliar. Every victory I thought I'd earned had dissolved in a matter of minutes. My parents had money, influence, friends in high places, and now, they were playing a darker game. When we reached the hospital, the sterile smell hit me like a wall. White lights. Cold tile. Too clean to be comforting. We found his room, guarded by 2 officers. Delaney showed her credentials, they let us through. Mr. Calderon lay motionless under the thin hospital blanket. His face was bruised, lips split, bandaged head. Tubes snaked from his arm. I felt my throat close. The officer at the door said, he was found at his desk around 8 a.m. Nothing stolen except some legal files. We're treating it as a break-in. Delaney turned to me. "Did anyone else know about those documents?" I shook my head, then hesitated. "My brother followed me yesterday." Her jaw tightened. "Then they know everything." I took a step closer to the bed. "He helped me when no one else would." My voice broke. "And now he's paying for it." Delaney's tone softened. "He's not gone, Elena. And his last act might still save you." Before court this morning, he uploaded copies of the documents to a secure drive. He texted me the access code. I looked up sharply. "You have it?" She nodded. "We'll recover it tonight. But for now, you need to understand what this means. Your family isn't just defending themselves anymore. They're trying to erase you." The words sank in, cold and heavy. "Erase me," I repeated, almost to myself. She nodded. "Legally, financially, reputationally. If Calderon dies, they'll say the documents were fake, that you manipulated him. That's their narrative. We need to get ahead of it." I clenched my fists, nails biting into my palms. "Then we do exactly what my grandfather wanted. We fight with the law." Delaney's gaze met mine, steady and fierce. "Then we start now." We spent hours at the hospital cafe, laptops open, scanning through files she'd already pulled from the court's database, real estate deeds, corporate transfers, emails between my parents and a shell company in Panama. Each new document was a dagger. They'd stolen from their own blood and then built an empire on the bones of my future. When the sun dipped below the city skyline, Delaney leaned back, rubbing her eyes. Tomorrow, we'll file an injunction to freeze all their accounts until the investigation is complete. Once we do that, they'll panic. And when people panic, they make mistakes, I finished. She smiled faintly. Exactly. Her phone buzzed again. She read the message and went still. It's from the police. I waited, heart thudding. What does it say? Her eyes met mine. Your parents' lawyer just filed a countermotion, claiming you attacked Calderon to fabricate sympathy. I felt the blood drain from my face. That's insane. They don't need it to be true, she said quietly. They just need people to believe it. I pressed my hands against my temples. So what now? Now, Delaney said, standing, we stop reacting and start planning. As we left the hospital, the night air was cold and sharp. The city lights shimmered against the wet pavement. I could feel something changing inside me, fear hardening into resolve. They'd used love as a weapon my whole life. Now they were using the law. But I finally had the one thing they'd never expected, knowledge. As Delaney unlocked the car, I glanced back at the hospital window where Calderon lay, motionless under the lights. I won't let them win, I whispered. Not again. Delaney's phone rang once more, unknown number. She frowned, answered, listened. Her expression darkened. She hung up and turned to me. That secure drive Calderon uploaded? It's already been accessed. We sat in the car, the glow of the dashboard screen lighting Delaney's face as her expression hardened. Who accessed it? I asked, though I already knew. She exhaled slowly. We can't see the identity yet, just the IP address. It traces back to your parents' corporate network. The words landed like shards of glass. They had it. The backup copies. Everything that could protect me, stolen again. Delaney's knuckles whitened around the steering wheel. They moved faster than I thought. This wasn't just an accident, Elena. Someone inside the court must have tipped them off. The world outside the windshield blurred into streaks of rain. My mind spiraled, Calderon attacked, the file stolen, my parents countering with emotion accusing me of violence. It was all perfectly timed. This isn't a case anymore, I said quietly. It's a hunt. Delaney nodded, starting the engine. Then we make them chase the wrong trail. We drove through the city's sleeping streets, past empty storefronts and flickering street lights. The hum of the tires filled the silence. Finally, she parked in front of a small building with no sign, a private legal archive, one of the few still using offline storage. This place doesn't exist in public records, she said. Calderon used it to store sensitive material. If he anticipated an attack, he might have hidden something here. Inside, the smell of dust and paper filled the narrow halls. Rows of metal cabinets lined the walls. The archivist, an older man in a cardigan, looked up as Delaney showed her credentials. We need access to Rivera Holdings, she said. He frowned, hesitated, then nodded. Calderon left a note, said someone would come. He led us to a back room and unlocked a drawer. Inside was a sealed manila envelope marked for Elena Rivera, only. My pulse quickened. I tore it open. Inside were handwritten notes and an old USB drive. The notes were in Calderon's neat script. If they access the drive, they'll think it's the original. But the evidence is here. The true files are stored offline, under case alias Lion's Legacy. Trust no digital copy. I held the drive in my palm. So they stole a decoy. Delaney smiled faintly. Then they think they've already won. Perfect. For the first time in days, I felt the faintest flicker of control return. We brought the drive to her office, a narrow building lit only by desk lamps and the hum of computer screens. She plugged it into a secure terminal and decrypted the files. Dozens of documents appeared, scanned letters, financial records, bank statements, all marked confidential. But at the bottom of the list was one video file. Delaney clicked it open. The screen flickered, then came to life, my grandfather, sitting in his study, the same faint light I remembered from childhood. His voice filled the room, calm, deliberate, resolute. If this recording is being played, it means my granddaughter Elena is old enough to understand what this family truly is. I built our wealth from nothing. But your father, my son, turned it into something rotten. He used my name to steal from investors, from employees, even from you. And when I confronted him, he promised to change. He never did. He paused, eyes lowering. Elena, if they've come for you, if they've lied to you, it's because they fear the law more than they fear God. You must not confront them in anger. Confront them in court. Let justice be your weapon. My throat tightened. The ache I'd buried for years tore open. My grandfather had seen it all coming, their lies, their greed, the manipulation. He'd built my protection before I even knew I'd need it. Delaney watched quietly as tears slid down my cheeks. This changes everything, she said softly. His testimony is clear, authenticated, time-stamped. They can't destroy this. I wiped my face, voice unsteady. Then we go public. She hesitated. That's dangerous. If we leak it now, they'll retaliate before we're ready. Good, I said, meeting her eyes. Let them show everyone who they really are. Delaney studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Tomorrow, we'll file this under evidence protection. I'll contact the court clerk first thing. If Calderon wakes up, he can verify the authentication. Until then, you need to lie low. I nodded, though my chest was burning. I wasn't going to hide anymore. When I got back to my apartment, dawn was bleeding into the skyline. The first light of morning touched the walls like a warning. I poured a cup of water, my reflection flickering in the window glass. Then, a knock. Not the hesitant kind. The sharp, deliberate rhythm of someone who owns the moment. I froze. Another knock. Elena, a man's voice said through the door. Calm. Too calm. It's Detective Ramos. May we speak with you? My heart dropped. I hadn't called anyone. Delaney hadn't mentioned this. I peeked through the peephole, two men in suits, badges flashing under the hallway light. About Mr. Calderon's attack, one said. You were seen near his office last night. Panic surged. I hadn't been near there. But someone wanted it to look like I had. I backed away from the door, shaking. The USB drive sat on the table, its small light blinking like a heartbeat. The knocking grew louder. Elena Rivera, open the door. And from outside, I heard another voice, familiar, cruel. My father's. See? I told you she'd run. They were pounding on my door now. The rhythm wasn't just a knock, it was an attack. The kind meant to break through more than wood, it was meant to break through me. Elena Rivera, open the door immediately. The man's voice thundered from the hallway. I pressed my back against the wall, my breath shallow. The USB drive was still glowing on the table, my last link to proof, my last piece of safety. I couldn't let them take it. I scanned the apartment, window half open, rain beginning again outside. I grabbed my bag, stuffed the drive and documents inside, then climbed onto the small fire escape. The cold metal bit into my palms as I pushed the window open wider. Elena, my father's voice barked from the hall. You're making it worse. I froze. For a heartbeat, I almost wanted to scream at him, to ask why. Why the betrayal, why the lies, why pretending I was crazy just to protect his money? But then I remembered the look on my grandfather's face in the video, calm, unbroken, and I swallowed my rage. Not yet. I slipped out the window, climbed down the narrow ladder, and dropped into the alley below. The rain hit me like needles. Somewhere above, my door splintered open, followed by heavy footsteps. By the time they realized I was gone, I was already running through the alleyway, soaked and breathless, clutching my bag to my chest. I didn't stop until I reached Delaney's office. It was nearly midnight, the streets empty. Her building was dark except for one light in the window. I buzzed once. The door unlocked with a click. She stood there in a gray sweater, eyes sharp despite the exhaustion lining her face. "You look like hell." "They came for me," I said, voice shaking. "Police, my father, all of them. They said I was near Calderon's office when he was attacked." Her expression didn't waver. "They're fabricating evidence again." "I know." I dropped my soaked bag on the table, pulled out the drive. "This is all we have left." "They already accessed the decoy." She nodded. "Then it's time to play them back." We spent the next 3 hours in the dark office, the only sound the hum of her computer and the steady tick of rain against the window. Delaney typed quickly, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she decrypted files, traced IP logs, and printed documents. She showed me the results: bank transfers, real estate titles, offshore accounts. "They funneled nearly $8.2 million through a fake consultancy registered under your brother's name," she said. "It started the month after your grandfather died." I stared at the numbers, numb. All of that was supposed to be part of the trust. "It was," she said grimly. "And they buried it under shell companies so no one would find it." The betrayal hit me fresh, sharp, like a wound reopening. For years, they'd made me feel worthless, the invisible daughter, the burden. But all along, they were using my silence to fund their greed. I turned to Delaney. "Can we prove this?" Her eyes flickered. "We can show it. But that's not enough. The court won't take it unless we verify the chain of custody. We need to record them admitting it, or at least acknowledging the fraud." "How?" "You still have access to their home, don't you?" I hesitated. "Technically, yes." "Then you go back," she said quietly. "You bait them." My heart stuttered. "You want me to, what? Walk into their house?" She nodded. "You're their daughter. They'll talk to you. You let them think you've given up. You record everything." I stared at her, shaking my head. "If they realize." "They won't," she said. "You spent your whole life convincing them you're harmless. Use that." Her words stung, but they were true. My parents had always underestimated me. Maybe that could finally serve me. The next morning, I drove to my parents' estate, the house I grew up in, now looming like a stranger. The white columns gleamed against the stormy sky, the manicured hedges framing a lie. My hands trembled as I rang the bell. My mother answered, perfectly composed as ever. "Elena," she said coolly. "Decided to stop running?" I forced a weak smile. I don't want this anymore. The fighting, the court. You win." Her eyes narrowed with suspicion, but greed sparkled underneath. "Come in." Inside, everything was the same: the scent of lilies, the ticking grandfather clock, the family portraits lining the hall. Except now, every detail felt sinister. I slipped my phone into my pocket, recording. My father appeared in the living room, arms crossed. "You're finally being reasonable." "I can't do this anymore," I said softly. "They said Calderon might not make it. I just wanted to stop." He relaxed slightly. "Then give us the documents, and it's over." My voice trembled just enough. "If I hand them over, you'll drop everything?" "Of course," he said smoothly. "We're family." My mother's smile widened, the kind that never reached her eyes. This inheritance mess was all a misunderstanding. "You'll see. We only wanted what was best for you." The lie was so elegant it almost sounded like truth. I sat down, pretending to hesitate. "So, all those accounts in my name? The money moved after grandfather died, that was for me too, right?" For a split second, they froze. Just long enough for the recorder to catch it. Then my father said too quickly, "That money was transferred for business purposes." My mother hissed under her breath, "Not here, Carlos." "Got you." I stood, heart racing. "I hope you know I'll never forgive you." Their faces twisted, realization dawning too late. My father lunged for my bag, shouting, "What did you just do?" The phone in my pocket buzzed, Delaney's voice on speaker. "Get out, Elena. The files just uploaded. They're live." My father's hand grazed the strap of my bag before I spun away, stumbling backward. The living room suddenly felt too small, the walls too close, the air too heavy. My mother's perfume was suffocating, clinging to every surface like guilt that wouldn't wash off. "Elena," my father barked, his voice cracking between fury and panic. "What the hell did you record?" I backed toward the foyer, one hand pressed against my pocket where my phone vibrated again, Delaney's voice still faint through the line. "It's uploading to the cloud. Just leave, now." "I told you," I said, trying to sound calm even as my heart pounded in my throat. "I just wanted to talk. To understand why you did it." My mother's smile flickered, the mask slipping for half a heartbeat. "You wouldn't understand. You never could." "I understand enough," I said. "Grandfather trusted you. And you betrayed him and me." My father's voice dropped low, dangerous. "You think you can ruin us with one recording? We built this family. We made you. Then you should have built it on something other than lies." He took a step forward. I bolted. My shoes slipped against the marble as I ran down the hall. Behind me, my father shouted something incoherent, threats, maybe my name. My mother screamed for him to stop, but I knew her fear wasn't for me. It was for what I had taken. Outside, the rain hit like knives again. I sprinted to my car, fumbling with the keys. The porch lights flicked on behind me, silhouettes forming in the window, my parents, framed like ghosts in the house they'd stolen. The car roared to life, and I drove without thinking. My pulse was too loud, my breath too sharp. When I reached the end of the long driveway, my phone buzzed again, a video notification from Delaney. I pulled over under the cover of trees, trembling as I pressed play. It was a recording of my living room conversation, clear, crisp, undeniable. My father's voice saying, "That money was transferred for business purposes." And my mother's sharp hiss, "Not here, Carlos." Her voice was the nail in their coffin. It wasn't just what they said, it was how they said it. The guilt, the fear, the reflex to hide. Delaney's message followed. "I've mirrored the file on multiple drives and submitted it to the court under evidence protection. They can't destroy it now. We did it." I let out a sob I didn't know I'd been holding. Rain blurred the windshield, streaks of silver melting into light. But the relief was short-lived. My phone rang again, this time, it was my brother. I didn't want to answer, but I did. "Where are you?" His voice was cold, clipped, nothing like the boy I grew up with. "You just ruined everything. Do you even realize what you've done?" "I told the truth," I said. He laughed, harsh and humorless. "You think this is about truth? It's about survival. You've turned us into criminals. You've turned me into one." "You did that yourself," I snapped. "You signed everything, you helped them." "They forced me, Elena." His voice cracked. "Dad said if I didn't help, he'd cut me off too. I didn't have a choice." My hands tightened on the steering wheel. "You always had a choice. You just picked the easy one." He went silent for a moment. When he spoke again, his tone was softer, almost pleading. "You can still fix this. Delete it. Tell the court you made a mistake. Please." Something inside me twisted, the faint, dying part that still wanted a brother. "I can't," I said quietly. He exhaled shakily. "Then you're not part of this family anymore." Before I could respond, he hung up. I sat there for a long time, staring at the raindrops racing down the glass. For years, I had begged to belong, to be seen, to be loved. But now I saw the truth with painful clarity. I'd been asking for acceptance from people who only knew how to control. The phone buzzed again. This time, a message from Delaney. Good news, the court approved our emergency filing. We've frozen all Rivera accounts until further notice. I stared at the words, barely breathing. Frozen. The empire they'd built on stolen money, locked. My father's face flashed in my mind, his control unraveling. They'll retaliate, the message continued. Stay somewhere safe. Don't go home. I started the car again, turning toward the city. My headlights cut through the rain, glinting off every surface like shards of glass. At the next intersection, I stopped for a red light. That's when I saw him, my father, standing at the corner under an umbrella, staring straight at me. He wasn't alone. 2 men in suits stood behind him. I felt the chill crawl up my spine. The light turned green, but I didn't move. His expression didn't change, calm, deliberate, terrifyingly certain. He lifted his phone and pointed it at me, snapping a photo through the windshield. Then he mouthed the words I'd heard my whole life. You can't win against me. The light changed again. A car behind me honked, snapping me out of my trance. I hit the gas, heart pounding as I sped away. When I finally reached Delaney's office, I was shaking. She was there waiting, coffee in one hand, exhaustion written across her face. He's escalating, I said breathlessly. He's following me. She nodded grimly. Then we bring this fight into the light. Tomorrow, the judge hears our injunction. Once it's official, every lie they built starts collapsing. Her voice was steel, but her eyes were soft. You've done the hardest part already, Elena. You made them speak the truth. I leaned back in the chair, soaked and trembling, staring at the flickering city lights outside. Then tomorrow, I whispered, I make them listen. Delaney's phone pinged with a new email, subject line, audio file, Rivera House, leaked to press. We looked at each other. Someone had already released the recording to the media. The room felt smaller the moment Delaney clicked the email. The fluorescent light above us hummed, the only sound breaking the silence between heartbeats. Her hand hovered over the mouse as the subject line burned on the screen, audio file, Rivera House, exclusive leak. She opened it. A video loaded, the headline already spreading across the feed of a local news network. Exclusive, shocking audio exposes family fortune scandal. Then came the voices. My father's, commanding, confident. My mother's, dripping with disdain. And mine, trembling, broken, pleading for truth. So, all those accounts in my name? The money moved after grandfather died, that was for me too, right? That money was transferred for business purposes. Not here, Carlos. The playback was clear, the timestamps visible, the tone undeniable. My family's voices broadcast across thousands of screens, their empire of deception unraveling in real time. Delaney's mouth fell open slightly. It's gone viral. Every news station has it. I stared at the monitor, hands shaking. The weight of years of silence crashed into me all at once, the humiliation, the gaslighting, the isolation. For the first time, the world could hear them. No more pretending, no more polished family dinners, no more masks. Who leaked it? I whispered. Delaney scrolled through the metadata. It was posted anonymously through a foreign server. Not us, not the court. Someone wanted this out before the injunction hearing. I pressed a trembling hand to my mouth. My brother, I murmured. He called me last night. Said I'd ruined everything. Maybe this was his way to strike back. Delaney's expression hardened. If that's true, he just detonated the last shield your parents had. Once the media sees them as frauds, their influence evaporates. They'll have no one left to protect them. She leaned back, exhaling. But it also means they'll be desperate. Dangerous. Outside, the storm hadn't stopped, wind whipping through the dark, rain beating against the glass. Inside, my heart was a drum of panic and adrenaline. Delaney stood and pulled a file from her drawer, a court packet already stamped and signed. "We're submitting this at sunrise," she said. "Freezing their assets is no longer enough. We're pressing criminal charges for fraud, embezzlement, and falsification of legal documents." I swallowed hard. "That'll destroy them." Her eyes met mine. "Elena, they already tried to destroy you. This is justice." But justice didn't feel clean. It felt heavy, messy, human. I thought of my brother's face when he told me I'd made them criminals. Maybe he'd been right. Maybe the line between victim and executioner wasn't as straight as I'd believed. Still, the truth was the truth. And for once, it wasn't buried. By morning, chaos had bloomed across the city. The Rivera name, once synonymous with old money and respect, now flashed across every headline. The Rivera inheritance scandal, daughter leaks family fraud proof. Golden child, dark secrets, inside the empire of lies. Delaney and I walked into the courthouse surrounded by flashing cameras. Reporters shouted questions. "Elena, did you leak the recording? Are your parents going to prison? Do you regret turning on your own family?" I didn't answer. My silence spoke louder than any denial ever could. Inside the courtroom, the air was electric. My parents sat across the aisle, looking hollowed out, aged overnight. My mother's hand trembled as she tried to fix her pearl earring, her favorite armor against imperfection. My father stared straight ahead, his jaw tight, eyes bloodshot. The judge entered, slamming the gavel once. "Given the public dissemination of new evidence, this court will proceed with an emergency review of the Rivera Trust." Delaney stood, composed. "Your Honor, the recording's authenticity has been confirmed by the original device. Furthermore, digital forensics verify it was captured on the defendant's property during a voluntary discussion." The opposing lawyer barely rose. He looked defeated, hands shaking as he mumbled, "The defense requests a delay to review." "Denied," the judge snapped. "The court will not reward obstruction." He turned to my parents. "Mr. and Mrs. Rivera, the evidence suggests years of intentional deceit, concealment of inheritance, and misuse of trust funds. Do you wish to make a statement?" My mother's voice cracked. "We were protecting her." The courtroom murmured. My father's composure finally broke. "This is a witch hunt," he spat. "She was manipulated by that lawyer." Delaney interrupted sharply, "By your own father's will, Mr. Rivera." The judge raised a hand. "Enough. The evidence is overwhelming. The trust will revert to its rightful owner, Elena Rivera, effective immediately. A criminal investigation will proceed separately." Gasps rippled through the room. My mother's face crumpled. My father's mouth opened, but no words came, just silence, the kind that fills the air when power finally dies. I didn't smile. I didn't cry. I just breathed. For the first time in years, I could. Delaney squeezed my hand beneath the table. "It's done." But I knew better. With people like my parents, nothing was ever truly done. Outside the courthouse, the press descended again. Questions shouted. Cameras flashed. I barely heard any of it, until one voice rose above the rest. "Elena, do you have a comment on your brother's statement?" I froze. "What statement?" The reporter flipped their tablet screen toward me. My brother's face filled it, pale, tired, eyes rimmed red. "I didn't want to say anything," he said in the clip, "but this went too far. My sister isn't telling you everything. She's hiding something our grandfather did." The video cut out before he explained. Delaney's voice was low, steady. "They're turning on each other." But I couldn't stop staring at the screen. My brother's eyes, pleading, haunted, weren't lying. Not this time. Delaney's phone buzzed with a new message, subject line, "Rivera Trust, secondary will discovered." She met my gaze. "There's another document." The words "secondary will discovered" glowed on Delaney's phone like a wound reopening. "What does that mean?" I asked, my voice already trembling. Delaney didn't answer right away. She was already walking, fast, through the courthouse corridors, heels echoing off marble. It means someone found a second version of your grandfather's will, she said finally. And if it's legitimate, it could change everything we just won. My stomach twisted. Who found it? The clerk said it was submitted anonymously to the court archive at dawn. No name, no return address. Could it be forged? Anything could be, she said, stopping at the records office door. But we have to see it first. The clerk, a nervous young man with ink-stained fingers, retrieved the envelope from a locked drawer. It was thin, sealed in plastic, labeled Will Addendum, 2018. Delaney signed for it, her expression unreadable. We'll open it together, she said softly. I braced myself as she sliced the seal. Inside was a single page, typed, notarized, perfectly formatted, with my grandfather's name at the top. It began innocently enough. This addendum shall amend the distribution clauses of the Rivera Holdings Trust. And then I saw it. My breath caught. In recognition of shared lineage, an additional beneficiary is to be included, Marcus Rivera. My brother. My vision blurred. No, I whispered. He wasn't supposed to. Delaney read the rest, scanning quickly. It gives him joint ownership of the trust's liquid assets, not property. But that's still significant. Then everything we did. She met my eyes, firm. Doesn't change the fraud. It doesn't undo their crimes. But it does mean he's entitled to part of the estate. My throat burned. My brother, the same man who laughed while my parents tried to ruin me, now had a legal claim to everything they stole. Delaney must have seen the despair in my face because she softened. It's not the end, Elena. It just changes the strategy. If this addendum is real, we'll prove it was coerced or altered after your grandfather's death. But we'll need evidence. I thought we already had all the evidence. She gave a small, tired smile. In law, there's always more. By the time the hearing resumed, the courtroom was a storm of whispers. My parents sat stiff, hollowed out from defeat, but my brother looked almost calm, too calm. He wouldn't meet my eyes. The judge entered, expression grave. We have received a new submission pertaining to the Rivera Holdings Trust. The court will now review the legitimacy of this secondary will. My pulse thudded in my ears as Delaney stood. Your Honor, we object to the immediate introduction of this document without forensic authentication. Opposing counsel, my parents' lawyer, smirked. Your Honor, this was discovered in a sealed box belonging to the late executor, Mr. Calderon. It appears authentic. Delaney's jaw clenched. That's impossible. We reviewed every file in Calderon's possession. The judge nodded. And yet, this one was overlooked. We'll hear both sides. As the bailiff handed copies to the bench, I glanced at my brother. His eyes flicked toward me, just once, before dropping. It was enough. I saw the truth there. He'd done it. He'd planted it. Delaney whispered, "Don't react. If you confront him here, we lose control." I bit my tongue until I tasted blood. The judge began to read the addendum aloud, his voice slow and deliberate. My parents exchanged a look, relief mixed with disbelief. My mother even smiled faintly, as if redemption had found her through her favorite son. When the judge finished, Delaney stepped forward. Your Honor, we request immediate forensic testing of the paper, ink, and signatures. We believe this document was falsified posthumously. The judge nodded. Granted. Results will be expedited. He turned to my parents. Until then, all financial transfers remain frozen. My father stood abruptly. This is outrageous. You're letting her destroy us with lies while we sit here helpless. The judge's voice was steel. You destroyed yourselves, Mr. Rivera. Sit down. The silence that followed was heavy, electric. Delaney placed a steady hand on my shoulder. They're cornered, she whispered. Now, we just need proof of how they forged that addendum, and who helped them. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to breathe. I think I already know who. Her gaze followed mine, straight to my brother. After court adjourned, I found him standing in the hallway near the elevator, his suit perfectly pressed, his expression unreadable. You really think you can fix this? I asked quietly. That paper won't save you. He looked at me, eyes rimmed red. It's not about saving, Elena. It's about surviving. You wanted war, well, now you have it. Did you forge it? He hesitated. Does it matter? Yes, I said. Because if you did, this time you won't be able to hide behind them. His voice softened, almost weary. You don't understand. Dad's desperate. Mom's breaking down. If I don't protect them, no one will. And if I have to lie to do it, then you're just like them, I said coldly. He flinched. You think being right will make you happy? You'll win everything and end up alone. I stepped closer, voice shaking with fury. Alone is better than owned. He turned toward the elevator, shoulders tense. Then you'd better hope the lab agrees with you. The doors closed between us. When I turned back, Delaney was waiting at the end of the hall, holding her phone. Her face was pale. The lab just called, she said. That document isn't forged. It's real. The hallway tilted around me when Delaney said it. It's real. Those two words shattered everything I'd been clinging to. For a long moment, I couldn't speak. The buzz of the courthouse lights sounded distant, like they belonged to another world, one where people still had certainty. What do you mean real? I whispered. They forged the first will, they could have done this too. Delaney shook her head slowly. I just got off the phone with the forensic analyst. The ink, paper, and seals all match the original trust documents. It wasn't fabricated later, it was signed the same day. No, I said again, stepping back. That can't be possible. My grandfather hated what they were doing. He warned me. I know, Delaney said gently. But he might have added Marcus as a gesture of reconciliation. Maybe he thought it would bring peace. Peace? I laughed, the sound sharp and breaking. My brother watched them destroy me. He called the police on me, lied to my face. He doesn't deserve anything. Delaney's eyes softened with something that almost looked like pity. Deserving doesn't always matter, Elena. The law only knows what's written. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tear the page out of existence. Instead, I just stood there, numb, as the truth rearranged itself in my head. My grandfather had loved me, but he had also loved him. And in his attempt to save both of us, he'd handed my brother the weapon he'd now use against me. Delaney placed a hand on my arm. Listen. It doesn't undo the fraud, and it doesn't restore your parents' control. But it does mean Marcus is entitled to half the liquid assets. If we fight that, it'll drag for years. So what are you saying? I'm saying, she said carefully, that we negotiate. Not surrender, strategy. We can use this to make him turn on them. I followed her out of the courthouse, every step echoing. The sky was low and gray, clouds heavy like they were listening. Across the street, reporters swarmed, cameras flashing as they called my name. I ignored them. My parents were nowhere to be seen. But my brother was, standing by a black car, flanked by two men I didn't recognize. He wasn't smiling anymore. Delaney leaned in close. He's coming to you. Keep calm. He crossed the street, ignoring the cameras. His eyes were cold, but underneath the steel there was something else, exhaustion, maybe guilt. Congratulations, he said flatly. You win the buildings, I get the money. Don't pretend this was justice, I said. You knew what they did. You helped them bury everything. He tilted his head slightly. And you think you didn't bury anything? You leaked the recording, Elena. You turned our family into a circus. I didn't leak it. Then who did? His question hung between us, raw and unanswerable. Delaney stepped in, her tone firm. Marcus, the court will still investigate your role in the misappropriations. If you cooperate, we can ensure reduced penalties. Your sister doesn't want to destroy you. He laughed once, short and bitter. You think this is about jail time? It's about blood. You can't cut it clean. You never could. His voice dropped lower. They're done, Elena. Dad's already talking plea deals. Mom can't even leave the house. You think any of that makes you the hero here? You just became them, ruthless, cold, self-righteous. The words hit hard because part of me feared they might be true. Delaney stepped forward, blocking me slightly. You've made your point. Now leave before this gets worse. Marcus smirked. Oh, it'll get worse. Just not for me. He turned and walked away, slipping into the waiting car. I watched it pull out into traffic until it disappeared around the corner. Delaney exhaled. He's bluffing. He's out of moves. But something in my gut twisted. My brother wasn't bluffing. He was planning. That night, I sat by the window in my apartment, the city lights flickering in reflection. For the first time in weeks, it was quiet. Too quiet. I opened my laptop and stared at the folder marked Rivera Holdings, Final. Inside were all the files, all the evidence, all the scars of everything I'd fought for. I thought I'd feel peace after winning. Instead, I felt hollow. My phone buzzed. A new message. Unknown number, you should check the news. I clicked the link without thinking. The headline made my blood run cold. Breaking, Rivera estate executor found dead, suicide suspected. Mr. Calderon. My body went cold. The article was short, clinical. They said he'd been under immense legal pressure following public controversy. They called him a man consumed by guilt. But I knew better. I grabbed my phone and called Delaney. She picked up immediately. They killed him, I said. You know they did. Her voice was quiet, strained. We don't have proof yet. But it's possible. And if that's true, Elena, you need to protect yourself. How? Every file, every document, every recording, copy them, move them offline, lock them down. Because if they silenced him, you're next. I looked out at the skyline, the glass towers glittering like knives. They can try, I said. But this time, I'm ready. Delaney's tone hardened. Tomorrow, we request witness protection for you. And I'll file for a criminal inquiry into Calderon's death. We'll find whoever did this. I nodded slowly, gripping the phone tighter. And if it was Marcus? Her silence was answer enough. I stayed awake until morning, the city gray and trembling outside. For hours, I stared at my reflection in the window, the same face my parents had taught me to doubt, now finally my own. I whispered into the stillness, you can't erase me anymore. But then my phone buzzed again, a private number, the same unknown source from before. I opened the message. You want proof? Check the drive marked Lyon's Legacy. There's something Calderon never showed you. I froze. The same alias he'd used for his secret files. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, shaking. The next line appeared seconds later. It's about your grandfather. Before I could reply, the screen went black. Every light in my apartment flickered out, and then I heard it, footsteps in the hall outside my door. The power outage swallowed my apartment in darkness. For a long, breathless moment, I couldn't move. The only sound was the faint hum of the city outside and the pounding of my own heart. Then came the footsteps again, slow, deliberate, stopping right outside my door. I backed toward the kitchen counter, searching blindly for my phone. My hand found it by touch, the cold glass slick with sweat. No signal. No light. Only black. A faint knock, then silence. Elena. The voice was low. Familiar. My brother. Open the door, he said softly. I'm not here to hurt you. I swallowed hard, pulse racing. How did you find me? You're not hard to find. You never were. I don't trust you. You shouldn't, he said after a pause. But you'll want to see this. Something slid under the door, a small flash drive in a plastic bag, glinting faintly in the moonlight. Then his footsteps receded down the hall. I waited. 1 minute. 2. 10. Only when I was certain he was gone did I kneel down and pick it up. On the side, in faded ink, one word was written, Lyon's Legacy. The same alias from Calderon's files. The same name from the message. I plugged it into my laptop, the screen flickering back to life as the generator in the building kicked in. For a moment, I expected nothing. Then a folder appeared, password protected. A note flashed across the screen. Elena, if you're reading this, you've learned part of the truth, but not all of it. Your family didn't start with corruption. It started with theft. Mine. It was signed, Arturo Rivera. My grandfather. My throat tightened as the files opened one by one, scanned letters, contracts, photographs decades old. The story unfolded like a confession from beyond the grave. He hadn't built his empire honestly. The land that funded Rivera Holdings, the foundation of everything, wasn't his to begin with. It had belonged to another family, a business partner he betrayed during a property boom in the 1970s. He'd seized their assets using falsified contracts, transferring ownership to his name through quiet political favors. Every dollar, every mansion, every trust fund, all born from stolen soil. My head spun. No, I whispered. He couldn't have. But the documents didn't lie. They bore signatures, seals, old photographs of protests, lawsuits buried by power. Then came the final file, a video, dated 6 months before his death. My grandfather appeared again, older, frielier, sitting in the same oak chair I remembered from childhood. His eyes were tired, haunted. If this reaches you, Elena, it means the truth has outlived me. I wanted to believe I could cleanse what I built by leaving it to you. But blood doesn't wash clean with money. I made your father what he is. I taught him to take. And I taught him to hide. You were the only one I thought could change it, could stop the cycle. But if you're watching this, you'll know that justice is never pure. It's never kind. It's just necessary. The video ended there, the screen fading to black. I sat frozen, the laptop casting ghostly light on my face. So it was true. The empire I'd fought so hard to reclaim wasn't just stolen from me, it had been stolen by us, long before I was born. The inheritance was never clean. The revenge was never righteous. For a moment, all I could do was stare at my reflection in the dark screen, the ghost of a family built on deceit, now staring back at me with my own eyes. My phone buzzed again, startling me. A message from Delaney. You okay? There's a media frenzy outside the courthouse. Marcus hasn't shown up since last night. Police want to question you both about Calderon's death. I typed back, he came to my door. He left me something. She replied instantly. What? A file. It's from my grandfather. About the original theft. There was a long pause, then, don't send it over text. Bring it in person. If this is what I think it is, it changes everything. I looked back at the drive, still blinking faintly in the dark. It wasn't just evidence anymore. It was a curse. Proof that everyone, even the man I worshipped as a child, was guilty. Outside, the rain started again, harder this time, hammering against the window like a warning. I packed the drive into a metal case, zipped my bag, and headed for the door. But when I opened it, a figure stood in the hallway. Marcus. He looked hollow, drenched from the storm, his eyes wide and glassy. He raised a trembling hand. Don't show them the file, he said hoarsely. You don't know what it'll do. What did you give me? Something I should have destroyed. It's not just about us anymore. What are you talking about? He stepped closer, voice breaking. They didn't just steal from others, Elena. They killed for it. I froze. Who? He hesitated, tears streaking his face. Grandfather. Dad. Maybe both. Just, please, don't hand that over. If this comes out, we all go down. The air between us crackled with rain and terror. I whispered, then maybe we deserve to. His face twisted with despair. You still don't understand. They'll come for you next. Before I could reply, a sound cut through the hallway, the click of a camera shutter. A flash. Someone was taking photos of us. I turned just in time to see a shadow vanish around the corner, and the faint red glow of a recording light. The flash burned into my eyes like lightning. For a moment, both Marcus and I stood frozen, our argument suspended in that single, blinding instant. Then came the echo of footsteps retreating down the hallway, quick, purposeful, practiced. Someone had been recording us. Again. I ran after the sound, barefoot on the cold tile, but by the time I turned the corner, the stairwell door was already swinging shut. Only the faint scent of cigarette smoke lingered, bitter, expensive, familiar. Delaney's voice flashed through my memory, they'll be desperate. Dangerous. When I turned back, Marcus was leaning against the wall, pale and trembling. You shouldn't have run, he muttered. Now they'll twist it, say you're hiding something. I stared at him. You brought them here, didn't you? He looked away. I didn't tell them where you live. But, they've been watching me since the hearing. Dad's people. I thought if I gave you the drive, they'd back off. I felt sick. You made a deal with them? It's not like that, he snapped. I thought I could fix this. You don't understand what they're capable of. I understand perfectly, I cut him off. They ruin anyone who threatens them. And now they've ruined you too. He flinched like I'd struck him. Before either of us could speak again, my phone buzzed, Delaney's name lighting up the screen. I answered with shaking hands. Elena, she said quickly, you need to come to the courthouse now. The judge called an emergency session. Your parents' accounts have been frozen, and a press leak triggered a full audit. An audit? Yes. Everything. Their offshore accounts, their shell companies, it's all being exposed. It's happening faster than even I expected. For a second, I couldn't process it. After months of fear, running, humiliation, they were finally losing everything. Delaney, I whispered. Don't let them bury this. Her voice softened. They can't. Not anymore. I looked at Marcus. He was watching me, eyes wide, realization dawning. They froze the accounts, he said, barely audible. I nodded. He sank onto the floor, covering his face with his hands. Then it's over. By the time I reached the courthouse, it was chaos. Reporters swarmed the steps, microphones flashing like gunfire. Inside, security guards struggled to keep order as journalists shouted questions. When I entered the courtroom, the scene stopped me cold. My parents were there, but I almost didn't recognize them. My father sat hunched forward, his tie loose, his hair disheveled. The arrogance that had always defined him was gone, replaced by something small and mean. My mother was trembling beside him, her makeup streaked with tears, clutching a crumpled tissue. The judge was reading from a stack of reports. His tone was flat, clinical, devastating. Evidence presented indicates a consistent pattern of financial misconduct, including falsification of inheritance documents, embezzlement, and identity fraud. Every word struck like thunder. Delaney stood beside me, composed as ever. He's listing the charges, she whispered. This is it. The judge continued, all remaining Rivera assets are hereby seized pending criminal proceedings. The defendants are barred from leaving the state. In addition, this court grants a restraining order protecting Elena Rivera from direct or indirect contact by the plaintiffs. My breath caught. A restraining order. Legal distance. Freedom, on paper, at least. My mother let out a choked sob. She's destroying her own family. The judge didn't even look up. The family destroyed itself. My father slammed his fist against the table. You don't understand. She manipulated everything. She had help. Delaney's voice cut clean through the noise. Your Honor, the defendant's intimidation tactics are precisely why the restraining order is necessary. The judge nodded. Sustained. Mr. Rivera, another outburst and I'll hold you in contempt. My father's shoulders collapsed. For the first time in my life, I saw him as small. Not powerful, not untouchable, just a man cornered by his own greed. When the gavel struck, the final echo lingered in the air like a ghost. Case adjourned. It was over. Outside the courtroom, the reporters surged forward again. The noise was deafening, questions slicing through the air. How does it feel to win against your own family? Do you think justice was served? What will you do with the inheritance? I didn't answer any of them. I just walked. Down the marble steps, through the storm of flashes and voices, into the cool air outside. Delaney caught up beside me, holding an umbrella. You did it, she said softly. They'll never touch you again. I looked up at the gray sky. No. But they'll haunt me. Haunting is better than being controlled. Her tone was kind, but there was exhaustion beneath it, the kind only people who've seen too much of human cruelty carry. We stopped at the base of the courthouse steps. Behind us, I could still hear the muffled shouting of my parents being led out by security. Cameras followed them now, not me. For the first time, I realized they were the scandal. I was just the survivor. But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like standing on the ruins of something that used to be home. Delaney turned to me. Go rest. There'll be more hearings, sentencing, asset division. But for now, breathe. I nodded, stepping into the rain. The drops were cold, sharp, real. As I walked toward the waiting car, I whispered to no one in particular, he warned me. Grandfather said Rivera blood always fights back. And I couldn't help wondering, if the blood I fought against was the same blood I carried, how long until I became like them? My phone buzzed again, an unknown number. I opened it. A single sentence appeared. They won't go quietly. Check your account balance. I did, and froze. The screen showed a transfer. From a hidden trust one didn't know existed. $3 million, incoming deposit, M. Rivera. The number blinked on the screen like an accusation. $3 million, incoming deposit, M. Rivera. For a full minute, I couldn't breathe. I stared at it, waiting for the bank app to glitch, for the screen to go black, for reality to snap back into place. But it didn't. It just sat there, that obscene, impossible number staring back at me, proof that my brother had done something catastrophic. Delaney's voice crackled through the car speaker. Elena? Are you there? I swallowed. He sent me money. What do you mean sent? $3 million. My brother. It just showed up in my account. There was a sharp intake of breath. You need to screenshot everything right now. Don't touch the funds, don't move them, don't even breathe near that account. This isn't generosity, it's strategy. I did as she said, my fingers trembling as I captured every line of the transfer, every timestamp. Why would he do this? To make you complicit, she said grimly. If that money came from an illegal account, offshore, stolen, laundered, it ties you directly to the fraud. You'd be seen as an accomplice. I felt the world tilt again. So this is his revenge? No, she said. This is his insurance. He's panicking. Your parents are cornered, and Marcus knows the only way to survive is to make sure you fall with them. I pressed my forehead against the cold window glass, the city lights smearing across my vision like streaks of fire. He said they'd come for me next. Maybe this is what he meant. Delaney's tone softened, but her words stayed razor sharp. Listen to me carefully. Don't delete anything. We'll trace the account it came from, prove it's an attempt to incriminate you. You hold still, and I'll call the judge tonight for an emergency injunction. The line went quiet for a second, then she added, and Elena, don't contact him. Not directly. But she didn't have to tell me twice. By midnight, I was back in my apartment, blinds drawn, laptop open, hands still shaking. The drive Marcus had given me, Lion's legacy, sat on the table like a ticking bomb. Everything in my life seemed to exist in that same awful balance now, proof that could save me or destroy me. The rain outside turned to thunder, echoing through the building. I opened the bank app again just to make sure it was real. The money was still there. Pending clearance. $3 million. My name. His initials. Every instinct screamed to send it back, but Delaney's warning held me still. If I touched it, if I moved it, I'd validate his trap. So I sat there in silence, the sound of rain mixing with the soft buzz of my phone, notifications, news alerts, emails, the whole city whispering about the Rivera collapse. Family empire falls amid fraud scandal. Daughter turns legal avenger against parents. Rivera's son disappears as investigation widens. I stared at the last headline until the words blurred. Marcus had vanished. No one had seen him since last night, since the flash in the hallway, since he'd handed me the drive and whispered that our family's sins went deeper than anyone knew. And now, $3 million from a hidden account. It felt less like a gift and more like a goodbye. The knock came at 2 a.m. Soft. Polite. Too polite. I froze, every muscle in my body tightening. Who is it? It's me. Delaney's voice. Steady. Familiar. I unlocked the door, relief flooding through me, until I saw her face. She looked as if she hadn't slept in days, hair damp from the rain, dark circles beneath her eyes. We need to talk, she said quietly. She stepped inside, closed the door, and set her briefcase down on the table beside the flash drive. The transfer isn't just suspicious. It's fatal. My chest tightened. What do you mean? Delaney opened her laptop, spinning it toward me. The funds came from an account flagged under an active federal investigation, one tied to Calderon's firm. I blinked, confused. Calderon's firm? But he's dead. Exactly. That's what makes it worse. Someone used his credentials after his death. The room felt colder suddenly. So now it looks like he sent me the money. Exactly, Delaney said. They're building a narrative. Calderon helped you steal the trust, then killed himself out of guilt. You're the last link. The heir who turned on everyone. My stomach turned. They're trying to erase me again. No, Delaney said. This time they're trying to rewrite you. I stood, pacing the small apartment. So what do we do? She closed the laptop, eyes sharp. We fight back with the one thing they can't manipulate, the truth. The file your brother gave you. The one about your grandfather. I froze. You think that'll save me? It'll burn everyone, she said, but it'll prove you weren't the architect of this. You were born into it. My hands trembled. It'll destroy the Rivera name completely. Delaney nodded. Maybe that's the point. I stared at the flash drive, its small light still blinking like a pulse. For years, I'd begged for their approval. Then I'd fought for justice. Now, the only thing left was the truth, and it was poisonous. I met her gaze. If I release this, there's no going back. There's nothing left to go back to, she said. At that moment, my phone buzzed again. A new text. Unknown number, if you release that file, you'll end up like Calderon. My heart stuttered. The message vanished before I could screenshot it. Delaney's eyes widened. They're watching you. Then let them, I said quietly. I picked up the flash drive, its metal slick in my hands, and plugged it into her laptop. The video began to play again, my grandfather's weary eyes staring into the camera. But this time, there was more. He said one final line I hadn't seen before. If my granddaughter ever learns the full truth, she'll know who to blame and who to destroy. Then he said a name. Delaney. The sound of his voice saying her name didn't seem real. For a long, suspended second, the air in the apartment felt too thin to breathe. My grandfather's eyes stared out from the screen, hollow, knowing, and then the video cut to black. "Pause it," I whispered. But Delaney was already frozen in place. Her hand hovered above the laptop, the glow of the monitor washing her face pale. My heartbeat roared in my ears. "Why?" I said slowly, "does my grandfather know you?" Delaney didn't answer. "Say something," I demanded, stepping closer. She exhaled shakily, closing the laptop. "It's not what you think." "Then tell me what to think," I said, my voice rising. "Because right now it sounds like the man whose empire I just tore apart recorded a message before he died, and named my lawyer." Her composure fractured for the first time since I'd met her. She sat down, her hands trembling slightly. "Arturo Rivera was my client before he was yours," she said quietly. "I worked with him years ago, long before you knew my name." "You represented him?" "Yes. I drafted the initial trust. I knew about the stolen property, the offshore accounts. He hired me to clean it all, to make it legal." I felt something inside me splinter. "You hid it." Her jaw tightened. "I buried it. It was my job. And when he died, I thought it died with him. Until your parents called me years later, asking for advice on how to adjust certain clauses." "You helped them too?" I whispered. "No," she said sharply. I refused. "That's why they went to Calderon. And that's why he became their executor instead of me." I turned away, pacing, clutching my arms. "So you knew the whole time? You knew what they did to him, to me?" Delaney stood, her voice steady but softer now. "I didn't know they'd come for you like that. I didn't know they'd destroy everything to protect what was already rotten. Elena, I've been trying to make this right ever since." "By using me?" I shot back. "By turning me into your redemption project?" She looked at me with something like pain, but not guilt. "By giving you the only chance any of us ever had to end it." The thunder outside cracked like the world was splitting open. I sat down slowly, my whole body shaking. "You worked for him," I said again. "You helped him steal." She nodded. "Yes. And then you helped me destroy everything he built." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Yes." I stared at her. "Why?" Delaney hesitated. "Because when I met your grandfather, I was young, idealistic. I believed him when he said the money would rebuild the community he took from. But I watched him crush every person who got in his way. And when I saw what he turned your father into, I realized I'd helped breed monsters. You were my last chance to kill what I created." I wanted to scream, but there was nothing left to say. She looked down at the laptop. "Now you understand why your grandfather left everything to you. You're not the heir, you're the executioner." Her words hung heavy in the room, pressing against the walls until I couldn't breathe. The rain outside grew louder, drowning the silence. Then my phone buzzed again, another anonymous message. "She's lying again. Check the last file." My fingers went numb. Slowly, I opened the flash drive directory again. There it was, one final file, hidden deep in a subfolder titled Echo. Delaney's eyes widened. "Don't." But I clicked it anyway. The video opened on a grainy feed, surveillance footage. My heart stopped when I saw it, Delaney, standing in an office I didn't recognize, shaking hands with my father. Timestamp, 3 weeks ago. No sound. Just that handshake. His smirk. Her calm nod. When the clip ended, the silence was absolute. My stomach turned to ice. "Tell me that's fake." Delaney didn't move. It's complicated. No, I said, voice breaking. It's betrayal. She closed her eyes, exhaling slowly. I met with him once, to protect you. He offered a deal. He said if I sabotaged the injunction, he'd back off. I told him I'd think about it. I never agreed. Then why didn't you tell me? Because you would have fired me, and everything we built would have collapsed. I was trying to keep you safe. Safe? I laughed bitterly. You were keeping yourself safe. She stepped closer. Elena, you're angry, and you should be. But everything I've done, every lie, every file, every risk, was to give you a way out. I stared at her, trembling. And now I don't know if you're my savior or my executioner. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Maybe I'm both. Before I could respond, the apartment lights flickered again, not a power surge this time, but a blackout. Total darkness. Then a sound, the faint click of the door unlocking from the outside. I froze. Did you? Delaney's hand went to her briefcase. No. Footsteps. 2, 3, maybe more. Slow. Heavy. My heart slammed against my ribs. I grabbed the flash drive, shoving it into my pocket. Move, Delaney hissed. We backed into the kitchen, the faint outline of shapes moving past the living room window. A voice echoed through the dark, smooth, measured, venomous. Enough games, Elena. My father. Give me the drive. Delaney whispered, he shouldn't be out on bail. He's not, I breathed. He escaped. The light snapped back on, and there he was. My father, standing in the doorway, a gun leveled at Delaney's chest. You should have stayed loyal, counselor, he said. Then his eyes turned to me. And you, Elena, you should have stayed quiet. The gun looked wrong in his hand, too small, too human for the man who'd once commanded rooms with just his voice. But the way he held it, steady, confident, almost bored, that was the part that terrified me. Dad, I said, my voice barely more than air. He smiled, calm and cold. You still call me that. I suppose that's something. Delaney stayed perfectly still beside me, one hand hovering near her briefcase. Her eyes flicked toward me once, a silent warning, don't move. My father took a step closer. The light from the kitchen lamp gleamed off the barrel. I didn't come here to hurt you, he said. I came here to finish this. You've done enough damage for one lifetime. You escaped custody, Delaney said carefully. That's another charge on top of everything else. You don't have to make it worse. He laughed softly. Spare me the legal sermon, counselor. We both know you're not exactly innocent in all this. Her jaw tightened, but she didn't respond. My father's gaze slid back to me. 3 generations of Rivera ambition, and it ends with you turning the family name into a headline. Are you proud of yourself? I forced myself to meet his eyes. I didn't destroy the family. I just stopped pretending it was something worth saving. He raised the gun a little higher, as if he might shoot just to silence me. You always thought you were better than us. Smarter. More moral. His tone darkened. But you've been playing the same game since the beginning, just with different rules. Delaney spoke, slow and deliberate. If you're going to talk, you might as well tell the truth before you lose your chance. Arturo stole everything you have. You built your empire on fraud, coercion, and blood. My father's smile didn't waver. And you helped him, didn't you? Delaney went still. He chuckled. You think I didn't recognize your name? My father trusted you to clean his mess. And now you've found yourself a new Rivera to fix. Shut up, I said. He turned to me, lowering the gun just slightly. You think she's your savior? She's part of this, Elena. The Rivera fortune has always belonged to people like her, clever enough to take, cowardly enough to pretend it's justice. Delaney whispered, don't listen to him. But I could hear the truth in both their voices, hers trembling with guilt, his laced with poison. I stepped forward. You killed Calderon, didn't you? My father's smile faded. He forgot his place. You had him murdered. He stole from me, he said flatly. He was going to ruin everything, until your little crusade finished what he started. My stomach turned. You're a monster. No, he said quietly. I'm a realist. You don't win in this world by being righteous. You win by surviving. Delaney's voice hardened. You won't survive this. He turned the gun toward her. Maybe not. But neither will she. Before I could think, I grabbed the nearest thing, the ceramic mug from the counter, and hurled it. It shattered against his shoulder, and the gun went off. The sound was deafening, the flash blinding. Delaney ducked. I dropped to the floor, ears ringing. The smell of gunpowder filled the air. When I looked up, my father was bleeding from the side of his head, not from the mug, but from his own gun. The recoil had grazed him. He staggered back, disoriented, the weapon clattering to the floor. Delaney kicked it away and lunged for her phone. Police, she shouted. We need an ambulance. He lunged at her, knocking the phone out of her hand. They struggled, the briefcase crashing open, papers scattering across the floor, bank statements, legal notes, the flash drive tumbling free. I scrambled toward it, snatching the drive just as his hand clamped around my ankle. Stop. I screamed. It's over. He looked up at me, blood dripping down his temple. It's never over, Elena. Not for people like us. His grip tightened, cold, desperate, familiar. You think you're different, but you're not. You're my daughter. You've got the same hunger. The same fire. I tore free, backing against the wall. No, I said. That's what you never understood. I don't want to be you. The door burst open behind him, uniformed officers flooding in, guns drawn, shouts filling the air. My father froze. For the first time, he looked small. They tackled him to the ground, cuffing him as he cursed, blood smeared across the tile. Delaney stood panting beside me, hair disheveled, eyes glassy. She stared down at him. You should have stayed quiet, she whispered, echoing his own words back. The police dragged him out, the hallway buzzing with radios and chaos. I sat on the floor, shaking, surrounded by fragments of my family's lies. Delaney crouched beside me, voice low. You did the right thing. I looked at her, the woman who'd been my guide, my betrayer, my reluctant ally. You lied to me. She nodded. And I'll spend the rest of my life making that right. If you let me. I looked at the flash drive in my hand, the last piece of the Rivera Empire. We finish it, I said. No more secrets. No more silence. Delaney exhaled slowly. Then tomorrow, we go to the press. But as the officers led my father past the doorway, he looked up at me, smiling through the blood. You think you've won, little girl? Wait until you see the will I wrote. His words followed me long after the police took him away. Wait until you see the will I wrote. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, that smirk, the blood on his temple, the look of a man who still thought he held the final card. By dawn, the apartment looked like the aftermath of a war. Shattered glass, overturned chairs, blood smudged on the tile where my father had fallen. The air still smelled of gunpowder and rain. Delaney sat at my kitchen table, typing on her laptop. Her sleeve was torn, her hair damp, but her voice was steady. They're transferring him to federal custody, she said. He'll be processed within the hour. No bail this time. I nodded, staring blankly at the floor. He said there's another will. She stopped typing. He was bluffing. I looked at her. You don't believe that? Her silence said everything. What if he's not? I whispered. What if he actually wrote something new, one that changes everything again? She sighed. Even if he did, it won't matter. Legally, the trust has already been executed. No new document can retroactively undo it. But if he filed something before the freeze, then we'll find it, she said firmly. And we'll burn it before he can use it. At noon, we drove to the courthouse. The streets were choked with reporters, microphones flashing like sparks. Every screen downtown blared the same story. Carlos Rivera arrested after violent confrontation. Daughter and lawyer foil final attempt to obstruct inheritance case. My name was everywhere, but I didn't feel like the hero they painted me as. I felt like a survivor crawling out of the ashes of a house that was still burning. Inside, we went straight to the records office. The clerk recognized me instantly, his eyes wide with a mix of pity and curiosity. I need to know if any new documents were filed under the Rivera estate within the last 48 hours, Delaney said. He typed something, frowned, and said quietly, there was one. Filed at 11:32 p.m. yesterday. My heart dropped. That's impossible. He was already in custody. The clerk shook his head. Filed remotely. Through a proxy account. He handed over a thin folder. Inside was a single sheet of legal parchment, notarized, authenticated. My father's name at the bottom. It began like every will, polite, formal, rehearsed. To my children, Elena and Marcus Rivera, I leave what remains of my personal estate and holdings. But halfway down the page, the language changed. Darker. Angrier. To my daughter, Elena Rivera, who has publicly shamed this family and brought disgrace upon the name that built her life, I leave one final truth: you are not who you believe you are. The room tilted. I grabbed the edge of the desk. Delaney's eyes scanned the page faster, then froze. Oh my God. I forced myself to read. Elena is not the biological daughter of Arturo Rivera. Her mother conceived her during an affair with a business associate, whose identity remains sealed in the attached document. I felt the words cut through me like glass. No, I whispered. No, he's lying. Delaney flipped the page. There was an attachment, a sealed envelope, labeled confidential DNA record. The clerk looked uneasy. Do you want me to open it? I couldn't answer. My body went cold, my mind spinning between disbelief and fury. Delaney took the envelope, her voice tight. We'll take this privately. Outside, the air was thick and humid. I could barely feel my legs as we walked to the car. He's trying to destroy me, I said. Even from a cell. Delaney said nothing. She placed the envelope on her lap but didn't open it. He's trying to rewrite your story again, make you doubt who you are. That's what narcissists do when they lose control. But her voice was distant, distracted. What? I asked. She hesitated. If this is true, Elena, it changes everything about the inheritance. Legally. Ethically. It means you were never entitled to it. The words slammed into me like a physical hit. You think it's real? I don't want to, she said softly. But we can't ignore it either. I stared out the window, my reflection fractured in the rain-specked glass. If he's telling the truth, then none of it was mine to begin with. Delaney looked at me, steady, unflinching. Then maybe it's time to decide whether you still want it. We stopped at a red light downtown. Protesters had gathered outside the courthouse, some chanting my name like a symbol of justice, others holding signs that read Rivera family, built on blood. The car felt too small, the air too heavy. I looked at the envelope in her lap, the thing that could undo everything. Open it, I said. Delaney hesitated. Elena. Open it. Her fingers trembled as she tore the seal. Inside was a single folded document, an old paternity test, yellowed around the edges. She unfolded it, read silently, then looked at me. Her face said it all before her words did. It's real, she whispered. You're not Arturo's daughter. I felt the world shatter quietly inside me. For 28 years, I'd been fighting to claim a legacy that was never mine. The light turned green, but neither of us moved. Delaney finally spoke. Whoever he was, the man your mother was with, it doesn't change what they did to you. I laughed weakly. It changes everything. The rain came harder, drowning the sound of the crowd. Delaney reached into her briefcase and pulled out the flash drive, Lion's Legacy. Maybe it's time you stop fighting for their name, she said softly. And start fighting for your own. I stared at the drive, then back at the envelope. My blood wasn't Rivera, maybe that was the only good thing left. Delaney's phone buzzed, a new email. She went pale. From Marcus Rivera. Subject: You need to know who your real father is before you destroy everything. Delaney read the subject line twice, her eyes narrowing, the glow of the screen flickering against her pale face. From Marcus Rivera. Subject: You need to know who your real father is before you destroy everything. The air inside the car thickened, heavy with silence and rain. My heart pounded, that familiar, sickening rhythm that only my family could create. Open it, I said. Delaney hesitated. Elena, he's manipulating you again. He wants to pull you back into their game. Open it, I repeated, sharper this time. She finally tapped the message. A few lines appeared, short, cold, deliberate. You think the truth will set you free. It won't. It'll make you wish you never looked. Mom lied to all of us. The man she had an affair with wasn't just anyone. He's the reason grandfather covered everything up. The reason our family's fortune was never clean. His name is Samuel Delaney. My breath stopped. For a second, I didn't understand the words. They blurred together, meaningless symbols strung across the screen. Then they sank in. Samuel Delaney. I turned slowly toward the woman sitting beside me. Is that? Her face told me everything. The color drained from it. Her hands tightened around the steering wheel, knuckles white. My father, she said quietly. Samuel Delaney was my father. I felt the air leave my lungs. No, I whispered. No, that's not. She nodded, eyes wet but unblinking. It's true. He worked for Arturo Rivera 40 years ago. He handled the land transfers, the legal forgeries, the bribes. When your grandfather betrayed his business partner, my father was the one who drew up the fake contracts. I couldn't breathe. So, what are you saying? Her voice broke. I'm saying that my father and your mother had an affair. You're his child, Elena. You're my sister. The world tilted. I gripped the dashboard, shaking my head. That's not possible. It can't be. You're older than me by 12 years, she said softly. Do the math. It fits. My vision blurred. I could hear my pulse in my ears, fast, frantic, animal. You knew, I said. All this time, you knew. No, she said quickly. I suspected. I didn't know. Not until tonight. I stared at her, the woman who had walked into my life as a lawyer and slowly become something like a savior, or maybe a curse. You defended me against the family that destroyed both of us, I said, my voice shaking. All while hiding that we shared the same blood. She closed her eyes. I wasn't hiding it. I was afraid of it. If you found out, you'd think everything I'd done was a lie. Wasn't it? Her eyes opened, fierce now. No. Everything I did, every risk, every lie I told, was to finish what my father started. He helped create monsters. I wanted to end them. The rain was coming down harder now, streaking the windshield like veins of glass. I wanted to scream, but all I could manage was a whisper. We're both products of betrayal. Delaney looked at me, and for once her composure cracked completely. I didn't want to be your lawyer, Elena. I wanted to be your protector. Maybe even your redemption. I laughed, not out of humor, but from the sheer madness of it. You were my sister the entire time and you never said a word. Because I didn't deserve to, she said quietly. My family ruined yours. And now, somehow, we're all that's left of the Rivera bloodline, even if half of it isn't Rivera at all. Her phone buzzed again. Another email. Same sender. You don't understand yet. The will he wrote wasn't just revenge. It was protection. He wanted you to know the truth before the court does. Attached was a single PDF file, Arturo_Rivera_confession.pdf. Delaney opened it, and we read together, my hands shaking, her eyes fixed. I lied to everyone, including myself. Samuel Delaney was more than my lawyer. He was the man my wife loved before she ever loved me. I destroyed him, and she never forgave me. When I learned she bore his child, I swore no one would ever know. I made sure the world would call her a Rivera, not out of mercy, but punishment. Every empire needs its heir, even if the blood is borrowed. My vision swam. The words blurred. My entire identity, my name, my inheritance, my vengeance, all built on a man's cruelty and another man's silence. Delaney reached for my hand, but I pulled away. Don't, I said, my voice shaking. Don't touch me. Elena. You were part of this too, I said. Your father, my mother, your silence, you all made me fight for something I was never meant to have. Tears welled in her eyes. You think I wanted that? No, I said. But you let it happen. Outside, the sound of sirens rose in the distance, the echo of consequences catching up. I sat back, numb, as the car idled. Delaney wiped her face and turned to me. You still have a choice, she said quietly. You can burn everything, the inheritance, the files, the Rivera name. Walk away from all of it. Or you can use what's left to rebuild. To finally make it right. I stared out the window at the courthouse, glowing faintly in the storm. Maybe I don't want to rebuild anything. Maybe it all deserves to fall. Delaney nodded slowly. Then we fall with it. I looked at her, my lawyer, my sister, my last remaining enemy, and whispered, maybe that's the only justice left. Before either of us could speak again, her phone rang, not a call, but an alert. A message from the court's secure server. Subject, final notice, Rivera Holdings reassignment filed. Sender, Samuel Delaney, posthumous executor. My grandfather had left one more secret. The message notification glowed like a wound that refused to close. Subject, final notice, Rivera Holdings reassignment filed. Sender, Samuel Delaney, posthumous executor. My breath caught. He's dead, I whispered. How can he send anything? Delaney's hands were shaking as she opened the secure server. Her father's name filled the header, stamped with a legal encryption key dated 28 years ago. He must have set this to release automatically, she murmured. After a specific event, maybe Arturo's death, or yours. I felt cold from the inside out. What does it say? She hesitated. You should read it. The file loaded, page after page of scanned letters, notarized memos, and one final statement at the top, written in her father's precise hand. To the rightful heir of Rivera Holdings, whoever survives the storm, this document shall enact the reassignment of all frozen assets to their original source, the families whose wealth was stolen under Arturo Rivera's direction. The name Rivera will be erased from the corporate registry. The bloodline debt will be paid. The world went silent. Delaney's voice broke the stillness. He gave it all away. I stared at the screen. The inheritance I had fought for, bled for, survived for, gone. Every dollar, every property, every legacy tied to the Rivera name was being returned to the people my grandfather had destroyed. All that remained was me. I laughed once, hollow, disbelieving. So that's it. After everything, after the trials, the betrayal, the deaths, there's nothing left. Delaney looked at me with a strange, broken tenderness. There's freedom. Freedom doesn't feed you, I said bitterly. It doesn't erase the scars. No, she said quietly. But it's the first time in our family's history that something clean came from something dirty. The rain outside slowed to a drizzle. The city seemed to hold its breath. I turned away from the screen and walked to the window. He knew I'd find this, I said. That's why he named you executor after death. He wanted us both to see it, the daughter he betrayed, and the daughter he stole. Delaney stood beside me, silent. I looked at her reflection in the glass. You're my sister. Half-sister. But that word feels too fragile for what we've done to each other. She gave a tired smile. Sisters in ruin, then. We stood there a long time, watching the city flicker back to life after the storm. It should have felt like closure, but it didn't. It felt like aftermath. When she finally spoke again, her voice was different, steadier. There's one more clause. I turned. What clause? She handed me the last page of the file. A single handwritten note from her father, dated just weeks before his death. If either of my daughters, by blood or by bond, ever inherit the Rivera holdings, they must destroy them. The empire was built on graves. To keep it is to continue the curse. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. I dropped the paper, pressing my palms against my face. He called it a curse, I whispered. And he was right. Delaney picked up the paper, her hands trembling. You can end it right now, Elena. Transfer everything. Let it go. I met her eyes. And what will we have left? Each other, she said softly. Maybe for once, that's enough. We spent the next 2 hours in silence, finalizing the reassignment through the Federal Registry. With every digital signature, another piece of the Rivera empire vanished. Bank accounts dissolved into restitution funds. Properties changed names. The Rivera crest was erased from the global directory. When it was done, I closed the laptop. The silence was immense. It's over, I said. Delaney nodded slowly. No. It's finally ended. For the first time, I saw tears on her face. She wasn't the calculating lawyer anymore. She was just a woman who had spent her entire life trying to balance the scales of two families ruined by ambition. I reached across the table and took her hand. For once, she didn't pull away. Do you ever wonder, I said softly, if redemption is even real? Or if it's just another lie we tell ourselves to survive? She looked at me for a long time. I used to think it was a lie, she said. But then you walked into my office. And for the first time, I saw someone trying to make it real. Outside, dawn began to break, pale light spilling across the city skyline. The storm had finally passed. I picked up the last remaining relic of our story, the Lion's Legacy flash drive. Its light blinked faintly, like a dying heartbeat. Without another word, I walked to the sink, dropped it in, and turned on the faucet. The water hissed as the drive shorted out. Sparks fizzed, then faded to darkness. Delaney stood beside me, silent. When it was done, I whispered, "No more lions. No more Rivera." She nodded. No more bloodlines. We stood there in the gray morning light, two women bound by betrayal and reborn by truth, or maybe just what was left of it. My phone buzzed one last time. No name, no number, just a message. You erased the fortune. But not the debt. AR. I stared at the initials, my blood running cold. Arturo Rivera. Even the dead weren't done with me. The city was quiet when it ended. Not peaceful, just quiet, like the air after a long scream. By the time the sun climbed over the skyline, everything that had once been mine was gone. The Rivera empire, the estates, the trust funds, the family name, all redistributed, dissolved, or erased from every legal record. The world no longer remembered us as a dynasty, just as a scandal that burned itself out. And maybe that was justice. Delaney, my sister, my rival, my mirror, stayed with me through the final signatures. We watched the last confirmation flash across her laptop screen. Transfer complete, all Rivera holdings terminated. There was no applause, no cinematic closure. Just the hollow hum of the computer shutting down and the soft clatter of keys as she closed the case for good. "This is the first time I've seen the Rivera name disappear," she said quietly. "Feels strange, doesn't it?" I nodded. "It feels like a ghost finally stopped whispering." We left the office before sunrise. The city still smelled of rain and electricity. I walked barefoot through the puddles on the courthouse steps, the cold water cutting through the last of my adrenaline. I wasn't the same woman who had stood here months ago, begging for justice. Back then, I wanted revenge. I thought victory meant ownership, that if I could hold what they'd stolen, I'd finally belong somewhere. But now I understood the truth my grandfather, my father, and even Delaney had buried under all their lies. Ownership was just another form of captivity. Freedom came from letting it die. That night, I sat alone in the small apartment I'd chosen, not one inherited, not one bought from old money, but one I could afford with what little was left. A quiet space, with peeling paint and a leaky faucet, but mine in a way the mansion never was. The headlines had already moved on. Rivera Empire officially dissolved. Court awards reparations to victims of corporate fraud. Daughter of scandal vanishes from public eye. They said I vanished, but really, I just stopped performing. The world didn't need to know where I went, only that I was gone. I looked at the single photo I'd kept from the wreckage, my mother holding me as a baby, my grandfather standing behind her, his hand on her shoulder, his eyes like a man guarding a secret he wished he could forget. I touched the edge of the photo and whispered, "I forgive you." Not because they deserved it, but because I couldn't live carrying their sins anymore. A week later, a letter arrived. No sender, no postmark, just my name, written in ink that bled slightly from rain. Inside was a single line, typed on old parchment. "The debt is never gone. It changes hands." And beneath it, a small brass key. I held it for a long time, feeling its weight. No note, no clue, just that message. Delaney thought it was nothing. "Some remnant of your father's paranoia," she said. But I knew better. My family's ghosts didn't leave gifts without reason. So I locked the key away in a drawer, next to the shredded remains of the Lion's Legacy flash drive, a reminder that even burned truths can leave shadows. Maybe one day I'd find what it opened. Maybe I'd wish I hadn't. Now, when people ask who I am, if anyone dares, I tell them the truth. My name is Elena. Just Elena. No Rivera. No inheritance. No curse. I live quietly, working in legal aid, helping people whose lives have been crushed by men like my father, rebuilt by women like my mother, and silenced by lawyers like Delaney. And sometimes, when I pass a courtroom window and see the reflection of a young woman standing there, trembling, uncertain, desperate for justice, I see a version of myself I once wanted to erase. But I don't pity her anymore. I nod to her. Because she fought. And that fight, however bloody, was the only honest thing my family ever gave me. In the end, the Rivera Empire didn't crumble, it was unmade, piece by piece, by the very daughter they had tried to erase. Elena's revenge became redemption, her inheritance became confession, and her curse became clarity. With her sister Delaney beside her, she dismantled generations of deceit and learned the cruelest truth of all, that bloodlines rot where truth is buried. The family that built empires from lies left her nothing but freedom, and maybe that was everything she ever needed. Now, she carries no title, no wealth, no name, only her story.